I am going to welcome you to day 2 of the Messy Middle Mastermind 2020 Cultural Summit. We have already raised over $2,500, I believe actually over $2,600. And in 10 seconds, when one of you sends Sheena Sadam a Venmo, that is at Sheena-Sadam, you will, and if I can spell this right now, I'm putting it in the comments, in the chat. Feel free to pop on the chat. I love everybody who has their camera on. Thank you for having your camera on and for participating. It's way more fun that way. It's also way more fun that way when you are in the breakout sessions. So if you're like, gotta have your camera off because you're eating a Snickers bar, that's fine. But when we get into the breakout sessions, please do us all a favor and put the camera on and unmute yourself and participate. The next thing is, please don't forget, if you get one item of value out of this, please send a Venmo. We are raising money for charity. 100% of the proceeds from today is going to go to charity. Jonathan White's Charity of Focus, he talked about it yesterday. Amputee Blade Runners. Sheena, do you have something you'd like to say for a minute?
I mean, you're set. I think you've got pretty much everything there. I'm super pumped for the day. I agree. I love that people when you can't have your cameras on, it makes it really easy. I know everybody's really busy. I got to tell you, I took like 3 pages of notes yesterday, and I'm still thinking through it, digesting it. I've already started implementing a few of the things, just thinking about. I think the biggest takeaway for me from yesterday was just this reminder to speak to your team and always be saying, like, what is our purpose? What is our mission? And I feel like, I guess I sometimes feel a little bit complacent in that, instead of just demonstrating what we're doing, also kind of speaking those words. I love that.
Cool. Well, I am going to get started right away. So our first topic is going to be with Nora Simpson. I'm going to bring her on in 1 second. Nora is a friend of the Messy Middle. She came to us from Kristen Francis. They had worked together and done some consulting. Nora is a neuroscientist. She hacks your brain. She is super smart, and I'm not going to waste her time. I'll let her dive into it. So Nora, do you have slides or anything?
I do. Do you want me to share my screen?
I'll make you a co-host, yeah.
Okay,
so,
sounds great.
You shoot. I'm going to take myself off of here, and the floor is yours. I will cut you off when you're done.
Okay. All right. How do I view this thing? I swear, I do this every minute, and somehow I forget how to do it every time. Anyway, I also want to say hi to Lindsay. Lindsay and I connected. Lindsay Dodge. Hey, Lindsay. Lindsay and I connected over Facebook a few weeks ago, so I'm like super pumped to see her face. Hi, Lindsay face. Okay, so neuroscience of overcoming distractions. This is usually an hour-long workshop, but I have delivered it in 5, 10, and 15-minute increments. And John said, Nora, this will be so much fun to kick off our day 2 with. And I was like, yes. So I'm going to go super speedy through the highlights. And I would love if you guys want to bring up questions. Okay. So I'm going to scare you first. Okay. Basically, we're all doomed. It's horrible. Okay. The technology has completely reprogrammed the American adult brain, probably the teenage brain too. The average American gets interrupted at least every 7 to 9 minutes at work. It's around every 7 minutes you get interrupted by a colleague. We basically complete our tasks within about 8.4 minutes, because right at 8.6 minutes is when we are so trained for distraction that we interrupt ourselves. And that first slide I was showing you was this accelerating rise, not just in interruptions, but work stress. There's a lot of stress going on in the workplace. It takes us anywhere from 32 to 34 minutes to get back to the original task that we were interrupted doing. And there's a 30% chance that we won't even resume the task we got interrupted doing on the same day that we got interrupted. Now, that's big global, like, work sphere interruptions. I'm using some really nerdy academic terms here. What about little tiny interruptions that don't actually pull you away from your task? They just make you slightly go, oh no, my phone, ding, bloop, right? A 2.8-second interruption that does not pull you away from your task, just kind of like grabs your brain for 2.8 seconds so that you can dismiss the call or the text message, right? That's going to double your error rates. A 4.4-second interruption is going to triple your error rates. A 4.4-second interruption is writing a text that says, okay, send, let me get back to work. What does it mean to double error, triple error rates? It means that you have to go back and redo your stuff and revise and revise. It means everything takes longer. Um, why are we all doing this? Because our brains are lying to us and our brains are telling us that we're very efficient and we're filled with multitasking. But actually, multitasking doesn't exist. The only thing that's happening when we think we're multitasking is that we're just switching very rapidly from one task to another. I'm not going to go, again, I've got 15 minutes, so we're going to go fast. Are we all addicted to distraction? Yes. Are we all doomed? Not really, as long as you talk to Nora about neuroscience and stuff. Um, this is a lot of fancy words to get you to the notion that switching tasks burns your energy. It burns your brain energy, it burns your physical energy, and it makes you kind of cranky and like just really much more unpleasant to deal with. And you guys all know, because you're real estate people, that you know how to cover up the cranky, but you have to put more energy into pretending that you're in a good mood, right? So that's even more tiring, exhausting, etc. When I work with individuals and teams on implementing these neuroscience and productivity tools, what I see is that people finish the day in such a good mood with so much energy. It's so much fun. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all this dopamine feedback loop, but the short version of the dopamine feedback loop is we all have the same level of craving for distractions that a heroin addict has when they crave heroin. It's the same chemicals in the brain. It's the same processing and order of chemicals in the brain. Also, our brains don't tell us I'm craving distraction. Our brains tell us I have to pick up this distraction because life feels so awful right now. Right? So the brain creates a perception of a yucky, dramatic, annoying, exhausting world. And that yucky, dramatic perception drives us to unconsciously go to our phones or go to whatever the distraction is. And a lot of the time it's not even the thought, oh yeah, I need my phone, or oh yeah, I need my distraction. It's, oh yeah, this is an important client. Oh yeah, this might be an important call. There's a million different ways that the brain lies to us about the necessity for these distractions. I see there's a chat. I love questions. Is there a question for me? Um, John's like, she just called us all heroin addicts. We are heroin addicts, and it's not your fault. Like, no shame, no blame. I'm a neuroscientist. I'm here to tell you there's software running in your brain without your permission. There are neuroscientists at Facebook and Netflix who are doing everything they can to make the most of controlling that software in your brain so that they maximize the hours you spend on Facebook and Netflix, because that's what drives their dollars. I don't work for Facebook and I don't work for Netflix. I actually care about the quality of your world. I actually care about your family. I actually care about your business. Um, and yes, we all feed each other's addictions and we don't even realize it. Thanks for that point, Christy. Really great point. So, what interrupts this loop? I'm going to give you, again, John gave me 15 minutes, so I'm giving you the fast and the dirty. I'll also put my calendar link in the chat. If you want to book a call with me, please feel free. The first call is totally free. It would be an honor and a privilege to talk to each and every one of you if you're interested. So what actually interrupts? I can give you a few fun tips and tricks. So first of all, the most important thing you can kind of be keeping in mind is that we're looking for simplicity, because the brain is gonna create a million realities all designed to get us back to that addiction distraction experience. It's simple and it's not easy. Just so you know, I always tell this part when I have an hour, I tell my part of the story. So I got fired from 3 jobs in 6 months. There's a whole backstory around it, but basically, I was addicted to distraction. I was losing 4 to 6 hours per day to distractions. Back in 2005, 2006, in that era, the measurement, according to the research that I go into when I have more time, shows that most Americans were losing about 2 hours a day to distraction. Nowadays, the estimate is that we do lose about 4 to 6 hours a day to distraction. So if I had had my level of distraction in 2006, if I had been an early career person today, no one would have noticed anything. But because I'm a trendsetter, I was already losing 4 to 6 hours a day at work, and I lost 3 jobs in 6 months because of it. Um, I was very lucky that I had a huge support network of very thoughtful, very compassionate people. And by talking to all of them and getting really humble, I started designing an approach to reprogram my own brain out of pure desperation. I just needed, I don't come from money. I needed to figure out a way to pay the bills. I live in New York City. It is not cheap here. Um, what I discovered was that I needed to make a plan to completely keep away from any and all distractions for certain hours of the day. I committed to that. The first day was very painful. I felt like I was being beaten up, like it was physical pain in my gut. But what I came to discover within the space of a few days, which I then ended up teaching to a few people, then a few hundred, then a few thousand people, is that you can actually drop into a really focused, really pleasurable experience of flow in any task, no matter how much you think you like it or you think you don't like it. You can have enormous pleasure and the feeling of like all of life just falling away in like a meditative, joyful, gorgeous state if you're willing to spend 3 minutes not getting distracted by anything at the beginning of the task. Those 3 minutes will be very uncomfortable. But if you don't interrupt those 3 minutes, by the time you're starting the fourth minute, you will be in flow. Most people have no idea about this thing. I call it the 3 minute bridge. And most people will allow themselves to be distracted during those first 3 minutes. Why? Because that's when the discomfort is the strongest. And when the discomfort is the strongest, that's when the dopamine feedback loop, also known as the heroin craving loop, drives our craving so strongly for distraction. So most people, even just looking at your phone once is enough. Most people will interrupt themselves during those 3 minutes. And here's the painful, painful truth about the 3 minute bridge. As soon as you interrupt the 3 minute bridge, the clock restarts on the 3 minute bridge. So I've seen people stay stuck in an ever interrupted 3 minute bridge for hours, days, years, even decades. And once they learned about the 3 minute bridge and they began to like set little timers and just be like, all right, I'm going to set timer for an hour. I'm going to do nothing but exactly this for an hour. They were able to show up for things that scared them. They were able to show up for things that they thought they hated. It's a life-changing experience. There's lots of other stuff I teach, especially when we get to the team stuff, because there's so many ways we can retrain teams to communicate in ways that really foster this experience of focused flow so that we get so much more done and we feel so much more refreshed and happy at the end of the workday. But I don't have time to get into all that, so I'll just brag and talk about the fact that I've had a lot of people do this like productivity stuff that I do with me, and they have amazing results. Dave Edwards quadrupled his closed deals in 8 weeks. Kristen Francis, who you all know, her whole team doubled their productivity in a 3 week boot camp we created for them,
Chris,
and they doubled their closed deals the following month. So they were at an average of 8 deals a month, and the month after we did our 3 week productivity boot camp, they closed 16 deals
yeah,
that month. They
Chris,
also went from
give her a quick plug.
working till midnight or 1 a.m. every night to being done with work by 7 p.m. every single night. So I'm really proud of that.
Kristen,
I will
Yeah.
stop sharing my screen.
go ahead, Kristen.
I did coach with Nora, as did my team. And not only did we realize that we were losing so much time in productivity, it also uncovered some of those cultural mishaps that we talked about yesterday. You haven't made it until your team is imploded. Nora was able to help us identify where we were losing the time. And the time was actually being sucked up by cultural imperfections, shall we say.
I just say all humans are crazy. And what's cool about this neuroscience stuff is that we don't just do the productivity, we also do the underlying like software issues. And, we have some fun. And I had a lot of fun with Kristen. Kristen and her team were fantastic.
Well, thank you so much, Nora. We really appreciate it. We have put her link in the chat here. We've put it on Facebook in a couple different posts. And if you need it, just reach out. Thank you for Kristen for introducing us to Nora. She's amazing. And we are going to segue into the next thing. So thanks again, Nora. We really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, guys. Thanks so much.
All right, Sheena, I'm gonna bring you on. Kristen, I'll take you off. Thank you. All right, Sheena, you ready for this?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just making sure everybody is here.
Good. I'm going to make Christy a co-host. I'm going to give Christy a spotlight, Emily a spotlight.
Callie, the people watching. What is that, Callie? The people watcher?
Where's Callie, California? I gotta find her.
Oh yeah, I'm the people watcher.
Not scary.
The people watcher, perfect. Good, she's a lurker, but she's here and she's got her thing on. All right, I'm gonna jump off and Sheena, take it away.
Welcome to our Culture Keepers panel. This is where our ops bosses, I don't know what else to say. That's how Christy calls everybody and I stole it. I think it's probably trademark. Our ops bosses are coming on to talk about how they assist with building culture on their teams and keeping culture. And I've just been so excited for this panel. I have had discussions with each of our panelists and our moderator leading up to this, and I've already learned so much. So I'm excited to see what else, what other goodies they've brought. I know they've taken a lot of time to prepare, of course, under Chrissy Belt Grossman's leadership. There's been a lot of preparation and a lot of planning. I'm super excited about that. So definitely get ready to take some notes. I'm going to quickly introduce everybody and then get into it because I feel like this panel could be 3 hours long, but we only have about 40-ish minutes. Is that right, John?
Yeah, 45. Go ahead.
45. Okay. I didn't know how long I'd spoken for. So, all right, we'll start with Katie. Where's Katie? I don't know. I guess it doesn't matter.
I'm here.
Here. Okay. Katie is the director of operations for Selling with CC. You guys might know CC Underwood in Jacksonville. They have 12 team members. She's been in the business for 4.5 years, and they are currently at $85 million in volume. Very impressive. Emily is here from an independent brokerage. She's the COO of an independent brokerage called Weimert Group. Did I say that right?
Yep, that's right.
Yes, Weimert Group in Orlando. They have 50, I can't read my handwriting, 54, 59 team members.
59.
59 team members. So they're kind of team/brokerage, just the way they operate. And she's going to tell you all about that. They actually call each other We Mates, which is really, really cool. They've been doing that for years. So I'll let her talk about that. She's been in business. She has been in the business for 5.5 years. And last year they did $272 million in volume. So big numbers, super impressive. Christy, both of them had been coaching with you? No? I think you're still on mute, Christy.
Katie coaches with me. Emily, I'm not sure who Emily coaches with, but Emily's awesome.
Awesome. So you suggested that I reach out to 2 of these. So
Correct.
Awesome. Thank you. And last but not least, as far as our panelist is concerned, Callie Morris. She is with an amazing team in Washington, D.C. called Tatum Properties Group, where their rainmaker sometimes showers, but not today. Callie is amazing. I'll give you a little bit more background on her. I met Callie virtually about 6 years ago. She was living down south. She was stationed there with the military, and her family has moved to several other places since then. She has gone from being our main TC/EA to running our operations, hiring, finding talent, hiring them, and just building system after system. She is wonderful, and I know she's going to be able to give you some additional details on how we've run virtually this entire time. Our entire operations team has been virtual for this entire 6 years. We'll finally break 100 million and sell probably 220 homes this year. We have 7 agents. We work entirely by referral, and Callie is a huge part of that. We're super grateful. I'm so excited for you to be talking on this panel. And then last but definitely not least, Chrissy Bell Grossman, also from this area, DC Metro, Virginia, Maryland. She has an amazing team. She also does coaching for ops bosses. She has a wonderful retreat that we send our folks to every year. Highly, highly recommend. I think it's really the only one of its kind. I mean, it's a couple days long. They touch on systems. They touch on spiritual things. And it really is about creating this rocket ship partnership between the Rainmaker and the ops leadership. So we're so happy to have you on, Christy. Unless you've got anything else, I'll let Christy take it away.
Awesome. Let's do this. I am so excited. I want to thank Sheena and John for putting this together. I was telling my husband last night, like, I so needed this punch in the arm and I got so much value yesterday. So our goal is to give back as much value as we can. And I'm so grateful that you're including the operations side, because we really do run in partnership. And I think you guys are going to be kind of blown away with some ideas of our ops bosses today. And I want to say, I know there's some people on the call who are just building teams. I may be an agent with my first assistant and all of that. So we're really going to talk high level, and then they're going to bring it down to here's some practical things that you can do. So I want to start out with our first question. We're the Culture Keepers panel. And yet this is Messy Middle Mastermind. So I know Sheena and John are always turning things on their side and asking interesting questions. So I want to flip that question and start out and ask our panelists, are you culture keepers, or are you culture creators, or are you culture co-creators, or both? Maybe Emily, you want to start with that.
Sure. Well, first of all, super excited to be here. And I can see my co-partner in crime and work wife on the screen. So you'll see Jenny Weimer waving at you. So most of what I talk about today, I build in partnership with her. And I tried to tell her not to come on the call today so that I didn't have to be nervous talking to you all, but here she is. So we'll just acknowledge her from the start. But I think as ops leaders, we are both. So absolutely every day long, both. As ops leaders, I think our job is to help our visionary or our leader. And like Christy just said, that works whether you're 2 people big or 60 people big. But our primary job is to simplify and bring clarity to that thing that you're trying to create. And I know John talked a lot about that yesterday. I'm super excited to dive back into that later this afternoon with you all. But as the leader or as the ops person in the organization, I think it also has to go personal first. So speaking personally, my number one job in my role is to internalize those culture pieces that we're trying to create for the organization and then model it every day in every season, no matter how I feel, whether it's hard, whether the person on the other side of the table is modeling it back or not. When some days you feel like you may be the only one flying the flag, but ultimately, as a leader or as an ops person in your organization, your job is to bring clarity to your culture, internalize it personally, and then model it. But there's a missing piece to that equation. And I think probably the most important part, which is that culture can't just live around your feet. It can't just live around one leader's feet. It can't live around the ops person's feet. It has to be built on everyone. So the fourth piece of that is to have just this absolutely wild belief that every person in your organization, no matter what their seat is a creator and a keeper of your culture. And then you treat them with that expectation. So practically speaking, the way that plays out is that every conversation they have matters. Every email they send to a client or a vendor or a customer or to each other with, inner team matters. And then modeling personally how this goes and believing others that they can do it too, I think carries it. So for me, it's keeper and creator and inspirer of the organization for every person to be both of those things as well.
Did your culture evolve into that place? Like when you were new with Jenny and you were a smaller team, because you guys have had massive growth in a short period of time. So everybody here's 59 people, but you weren't 59 people when you joined the team. What was the evolution of that? And what was your role on the operations side of kind of crystallizing that into implementation versus just some airy-fairy idea?
Yeah, sure. So we were 18 when I joined. So just to give you perspective, and So I come into the middle of the story, just like anybody joining today comes into the middle of our story. And I like to talk about that as a culture piece too, because I think it's important to recognize that this thing was living, breathing, and growing off the backs of a lot of people that put a lot of heart and effort in the very, very beginning of the story. So culture to me started back in the early days before I was even around. And it started with Jenny as the single agent, becoming a team leader, bringing on more and more people, and aligning herself with people that were going to do business like she wanted to do it. And we're going and bringing people along into that vision. So by the time that I came into the group, they were already well on that path. And then I think I had a little bit of an instrumental role of just sort of putting it on paper. So to jump ahead a little bit in our story, like Jenny's been in business about 20 years, but 3 years ago, we stepped out of a large brokerage to become an independent brokerage. And it was sort of in that season that we had a chance to sort of ask ourselves, like, who are we going to be? Like when you take the mission statement and you take the vision statement off the wall that somebody else has given you, how do you go forward? And this is in the midst of like trying to rebuild websites and branding and figure out what your office is going to look like and where people are going to work, and have really important conversations with agents and staff to try to see if they're even going to come along. So it was in that season, I think, that we had a weird chance to sit down and say, okay, I know we're going to be who we've always been as a team, but how do we put that on paper? How do we get people to come alongside and do this? And to give that up, we built it off of a concept that Sheena said it off the beginning of her intro, but we call each other we mates instead of teammates. So we wanted something that was super, super simple. It was clear. It was easy for people to remember. But we built it in a season where we were running 1,000,000 miles an hour, and we understood that we already knew who we wanted to be. We just needed to get it on paper. So my role was just helping get it on paper so that we could begin to live it out.
And then we're going to talk later about how you get it from paper to actual living, breathing, whatever. So as you're saying that, it reminds me that I want to talk to Katie. You're talking about like in that season, we made that move. Well, Katie, your team has had a season of a heck of a season this year. And I think some of the people in my mastermind group on this call yesterday were talking about, we've lost some agents. We're trying to really figure out what our culture is. Tell us kind of like what your team has gone through this year.
Yeah, so everyone who has lost people, you can email me because I know the pain. So our year, we started at, I want to say we started 19 people on the team, 14 agents. We're now at 6 agents, including my rainmaker. So we started with 5 admin, and 2 of those 5, me being one of them, is still on the team. The other 3 have evolved into different people. So we've definitely gone through some ups and downs this year. A couple people who we lost, one was a mega agent. She'd been on the team for right around 5 years. And so she went off to do her own thing. And then we actually just left last week the other longest standing member on the team for 5 years, who myself and Cece, we were really close with. She'd been on the team for 5 years. So I'd been with her for 3, Cece was with her for 5. And those are the ones that make a bigger impact when leaving your team. So you have to see, okay, where do you go from here? What's the, where is the team going to evolve? What do we need to change? Because one of those things is that Cece's now going on listing appointments. So seeing where those gaps are, and you need to fill them. So I think when losing people, though, you have to look at the reason. And is it the culture aspect of the team? Is it they're not in production and they don't want to be in production, like what your team standards are, kind of what that looks like? And so I think going back to square one and bringing that back into the hiring process. Last year was a really big year of growth for us. We brought out a ton of agents. Some of them self-discovered their way off of the team. Some of them we had to help guide them to self-discover their way off of the team. For different reasons. And so that was some of the people that left this year. And then also promoting growth with those people who want to do something on their own, maybe. And so being that stepping stone for them and being okay with it. It's something that was new to me this year. Cece's gone through it. She's been in the business since 2007. So imagine getting in the business in 2007. And so building from that. So going back to the hiring process and being really clear on who you want to bring onto the team and making sure that they're bought into your value and your culture. So a big piece of that is, yes, whenever your rainmaker is interviewing an agent, they're obviously going to talk about the culture, and the person's going to say, yes, I love that. That sounds amazing. Big, shiny things. So something that has taught me this year is to really, to be that extra set of eyes in that and be a little bit more objective in seeing, hey, these are a couple maybe of the red flags or the yellow flags that I'm seeing. What are your thoughts? KW people, if you have taken CV, there's a defense call. So I'm kind of that defense person for the team and making sure her vision is growth. Obviously, that's every rainmaker's vision for the most part, I would think, is growth. And that's mine as well. But then I also I'm in the thick of it a little bit more, talking to the operations people and talking to the agents maybe more in passing on a personal level than accountability and meetings and things like that. So kind of bringing that in, hey, I don't know if those two people might get along. This is kind of what I'm seeing. What are your thoughts? And if I'm pointing something out to her, then she's able to say, no, this is why I don't feel this way, or I didn't think about that. Thank you for giving me that clarity. So I think being really comfortable with telling your rainmaker kind of what your opinions are and what your thoughts are, and making sure.
So you're the culture protector almost on your team. And what I've seen is that you're evolving, you're taking a stronger role on the operations side in making sure that the voice of the culture of the business is being heard all the way throughout, hiring to onboarding to all of the rest of the stuff. Callie, I want to come to you because one of the things that we talked about a little bit yesterday, and then we talked about on the call, was we all talk about life by design, like this big concept of life by design. And I hear a lot of operations people around the country thinking to themselves, I'm not sure that really applies to me, or how does that apply to me? How have you guys embraced life by design on your team? Like, is that part of your culture? And does that include the operations people? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it does include the operations staff. We call them our special ops people. All of our admin are special ops. And it is part of our culture for them to live a life by design. And it really gets down to what their specific goals are. And so it looks differently for each person. And that's where I come in and to help facilitate that. So break it down. What are your goals? And then what can I do to help you get there? And staying in communication in regards to their goals. And that's what's going to lead them to their life by design. Is it closing more transactions, or is it closing transactions more effectively? So everyone has their own goals, and that's what's going to help them get that life, or start living the life that they deserve.
So what does that look like on your team? Like, can you give me an example? Like, what, if I'm an operations, like when I'm an ops person and I hear, oh, someone is going to be a vehicle to my life by design, like that makes me really excited. Like, I want to be on your team. What does that, or any of you can answer that question. What would that look like on your team versus on a different team? Because I think you guys have done a really good job at that.
So I would say, let's see an example. Okay, so we do have a transaction coordinator that has met her unit number goal 2 years in a row now. And it's like, okay, what do we want to do next year? Do we want to increase that goal, or do we want to think of something else? And so what we discussed was that she wants to improve the way that she is doing things, because that will give her more time with her kids and her family. Her husband's currently deployed and she has 3 kids. So she definitely could use that time, and that time is very valuable to her right now more than ever. So being able to process those transactions more effectively and quickly gives her that time back, letting her live that life by design.
So I love that. And I think all 3 of you guys have that in common. Katie, I think this is probably one of your growth points from this year is learning how important that one-on-one relationship is and the role of the ops team in the one-on-one relationships. I'd love to know from any of you guys, like what are you doing concretely, systematically, purposefully to create those one-on-one relationships? Like Callie, I love that you know what's really important to her, and I think that's an operations person's role. How are you guys systematizing that? If I'm listening and I'm an ops person, what kind of things are you doing? I told you I was going to ask questions that weren't on the list.
I have a coaching call with each of our transaction coordinators and our EA on a weekly basis. It's just really a 15-20 minute conversation every week. But the first thing I ask them is, how are you doing? How are you doing today? And they know that when I say that, I'm not asking how's work going. It's like, how are you and what is around you? Because like Sheena said, we're purely virtual. And knowing what's going on in their world, I don't see them every day. I don't talk to them every day, but knowing what's going on in their world will help both them get it off their chest or have someone to think through it with them. And then it also helps me on the ops side of understanding where are they right now, whether it be personal or work. What can I do to help them? What can others learn from their experiences and so forth? So having those weekly calls, they're not all about work.
I love that you're very purposeful, that it's about them and not the work they're doing. Because I think we often are like, oh, we're focused on the TC or the EA but we're not focused on the person. Sheena, that's a tribute to your leadership. I just want to pat you on the back for that, because I remember when you spoke at my retreat last year, you talked about the fact that our team isn't looking for leads. We're not even looking for buyers and sellers. We're just looking for people we can help. So what Callie just said goes right along with that. Emily, Katie, do you guys want to add anything in terms of like, how do you systemize culture? Like, is it systemized in your hiring, your onboarding, like how, and then in your retention, what does that look like?
So for us, like you said, it's something that has been a growth for me. I talked to Emily the other day and she used the term fluffy. So I'm just going off of what you said. It's not an insult by any means, but I'm learning how to be more fluffy, I guess. And getting those, I think just internalizing the thing. So we did a love language little session at our retreat last year. Are you looking at that? You got them, but what are you doing with it? Do you know how to communicate with your people? And so that's something that I'm learning and seeing what's important to them. One of those things is that we're doing our operations retreat next week. And I'm not a big vision board person just because I've never really done it, but 2 of the 5 people got like lit up when I said that let's do a vision board, and that was really important to them. So now I know that they like those things, they like those touches, they like talking about what they want. So that's more empowering to me to, okay, it's not like you're pulling tooth and nail. So I think that that's a test of the people that you have. Are they bought into you? Do they want to be a part of the team growth, because you can promote their personal growth as well? So I think just being in tune with that piece is a huge lesson that I've learned this year.
Love it.
Love that.
Emily,
I have 2 thoughts for you. The first is that they're people, like they have real lives, real struggles, real problems, real, the world is an interesting place these days, and people are dealing with that on a multitude of levels. So whether you're a leader or ops, your job is to be in tune with what your people need. And then beyond the path that we'll go down next, which is hiring and retaining and calendaring some of the cultural pieces, I think on a personal level, you have to be willing to let people go through seasons. You have to be willing to let people need different things out of their spot. So a practical example of that would be a client care coordinator, which is TCs in our world, who says, hey, I think I may want to go out into the field. And so preparing that person, getting them ready, giving them the right tools and skills to go out into the field, and then watching them just absolutely kill it, like, is just an amazing feeling. But she had to stick her hand up, be brave, ask for some growth opportunity, and we had to be willing to say yes, and let's help you get there. Or opposite, we've had agents that have been out in the field and they've said, you know what, I'd really like a little more evening and weekend flexibility with my kids. So is there a space for me inside the organization? So putting people first and putting their needs first when you've made the right hires and you've brought the right cultural fits onto your team, and then making space for them for the season that life has handed them, will garner trust, will garner longevity in the relationship, and means that they will go with you wherever you're trying to go next, because they just trust there's always going to be a seat for them on the bus. And that's one of the things that I really believe our organization has done well. And I think it takes that history of doing that year over year to prove to new people that you're willing to be that type of organization. So the people that got on the bus first built trust for the people that we've been trying to bring on the bus today. So we can say, look at this track record, look at these people that we have done this with, we've made these moves with. So whether you're 2 people or where we are now at 59, it's making those early decisions to take care of people as people first, that will get you there. And Katie referenced our conversation about being fluffy this week. We were talking about personality styles and how a lot of time in operations, you get these high D personalities that are like, I just need to move it forward. We just have to get this thing going. But it's about slowing down and bringing people with you. So nothing being around your feet. When you're invited into opportunities, you're bringing people with you. When you're invited into conversations, you bring people with you, and you slow down enough, or you get fluffy for a minute with somebody in order to make sure that you're hearing them as people first. So that was my first thought, Christy, to what you were talking about.
So I want to delve into, because we're ops, and I know we have ops people that have joined us today who weren't here yesterday, and ops people are always looking for the tangible, practical implement. So I always tell people that I believe retention is in the relationship. So how are you intentionally creating relationships with your people?
I think honestly, it's calendaring it. It sounds like such a simple piece, but it's making sure that you have like cleared space in your calendar to connect with your people. So that can be broad. It can be team meeting type atmosphere. It can be group event type atmosphere where you're just out having a good time, or it can be intentional. I'm reaching out one-to-one to check in on you. I don't want my teammates to know that that's calendared, but it's calendared for me. So there's that, if any of them are listening in on Facebook.
Yeah, don't do that, because I had my mom on my 411 one time that I was going to make sure to have lunch with her once a month because I was really bad about it, and she found out and she was very hurt. So don't let your people know that they're calendared. But I think it's a good thing. It's purposeful because it's important to you.
It's super important to me. Our people are everything. They are the magic of our business, and I know it. Like I believe my job as a leader in the organization is to take care of the people who are taking care of the people. And that spans out lots of layers, right? So my job as a leader is to take care of the staff and to take care of our agents, charging our staff to take care of our agents, and then our agents obviously to take care of our clients and our customers. So if we will take care of the people that are taking care of people, no matter what level you're sitting at, the business will always be there and it will always take care of itself.
Yeah,
but I think calendaring
your very first point about you have to lead by example of living the values yourself. So if you're demonstrating to them how to live the values, they will live the values with their clients and your customers.
Yeah. And if they don't, to me, that's identifying them as a non-culture fit. And it shows up very fast when at the top you're expecting folks to live into it and you're willing to model it and live in day out, and then you're asking them to do that, you start to really easily be able to identify who is out of culture, and you can either address it. And John said this yesterday, and I loved this, I wrote it down, but it was up or out, like which one? So I think that's super impactful.
If you guys have questions, type them in, because I think we only have a couple more minutes. We literally had so many questions, we're not going to get around to all of them. Kelly, is there anything else you want to add before people type in the questions that we didn't touch? We had a variety of questions about, are your systems serving you, or are you serving your systems? How are you figuring out what's working, what's not, and when it's time to change?
Yeah, and the first time I read this question, when you say systems, my mind being ops goes straight to technology, because that's what I'm working in and working on a lot of the time. So when you say systems, that's what I go to. But there's really, it's more than that, even in the ops, on the ops side. So there's the interacting with the clients, there's interacting with the team, and the agents. So some things that we do systemize, that is not tech related, it are our business planning meetings that we have not only with the agents, but also with everyone on the ops team, discussing their goals and having those meetings with them, even the coaching calls that we do. Sheena does coaching with the agents. I do a couple of the agents, and then I do all of the ops. And then there's also the, I'm looking at my sheet here. We also do our, we give little gifts, I guess, show our appreciation. So we systemize that. We send things out to our ops team. We do birthdays on the team, major anniversaries of being on the team, 1, 5, and 10 years. And we also, all of our members on our team know that we have an open door policy where they can come to myself, Sheena, or Han, and they are able to tell us, Callie, I don't like the way you're doing this. Like, they know they're not going to hurt my feelings, because I want that feedback, because I can only do better if they are open with me. If they have an issue with somebody else on the team, they are more than welcome to, and we encourage them to please come talk to us, let us know what's going on so we can help figure that out. So those are some things that we systemize, where we make sure that the agents are aware that we're doing all of this on the back end, and we have a system in place. So just come to us. We got it down. Another thing I wanted to mention was the leadership. Our leadership, Sheena and Han, are amazing. And we've really systemized that in a way to where everyone on the team has some sort of coach, some sort of person that they can go to and talk out their ideas and their goals. So we've systemized that as well.
I love that. I'll just throw a last concept out. Maybe you guys can talk in your masterminds about that. We sort of chatted a little bit as a group about, which was the difference between customer service and customer experience. And we talk about that with our buyers and sellers. Like, are our buyers and sellers experiencing something and feeling something? And I think we have to do the same thing on the operations side. How can we ensure that our agents and our admin teams are having an experience by being part of our team versus just being served? We're servant leaders, so how are we serving through our systems? I don't know if any of you guys want to just chime in. I know we're probably over time. I'm like waiting for John to go ding, 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 ding.
No, Christy, you're good. You guys have like another 10 minutes. I think we should open it up to some questions in a minute, but
yeah, somebody asked about books, I think, in here.
Yeah, we definitely want book club recommendations. We'll have too many to read though. So if anybody has like one favorite, that would help.
On the piggybacking off of Christy, what you just said, customer service versus customer experience, for our retreat, we're focusing on, if you go to the Loken Group Shares, their website, I think it's TLG Shares, they have their business advance for next year. And so we kind of molded ours around a piece of that. And it's, how are we going to stand out from the rest of it? And so there's a book, I think it's called I Care, the Disney Experience. I forget what it is. I can post it later. And it's all in their advance packet, but it's talking about why Disney stands out from the rest, because everyone thinks about Disney customer service. So that's something that we're doing. Same thing with Ritz-Carlton. They have an entire like 2-day thing that we just signed up for. So using that for your customers, but also if you're an ops person or if you're a rainmaker, thinking about that and just kind of shifting your focus and using those things for your organization internally as well as externally.
One of the things that Katie did this year, which I love, that I think created an experience for the agents on her team, is to create an internal portal. It's like their own internal app, and it's super easy to do on Google Sites. So if you already have your domain through them, it's free. But agents are actually using it to look up stuff versus going to a drive and trying to search through this. It's sexy and it has pictures and it's really good. So that's like a simple, tangible thing that you can implement. What other questions do you guys have? You guys have the top ops people in the country on the call right now. It's Google Sites. It's part of you. It's one of those things you don't even know you have, along with your Gmail and your Google Drive and everything else.
Heard of G Suite. Yeah, I have one created too, but it's like, it was dedicated to commands, and now I'm kind of changing it to be dedicated to everything.
Go to, it's on the Ops Boss website for everyone who's interested. We did a webinar about it. Christy can probably link it later, kind of shout out to Ops Boss for that. But there's a whole one where we walked one of the other Ops Boss through kind of creating her own system, showing what we have on ours and kind of where to kind of start. So it's a really great resource for you to use. And it's also really powerful in recruiting, if that's what you're interested in using it for, is showing why your team stands out from other teams.
Also for retention, because once they get used to this awesome thing, they don't want to go somewhere else and not have it. It's on our YouTube channel, Ops Boss Coaching on YouTube. Emily, you have kind of, is it a 24 touch plan, 44 touch? I don't know how many touches, what kind of, and I think you posted it in the group already.
I did. I don't know that I counted. It's more than 10. I know that. It's calendared though. And I listed it out in the group earlier this week. We can even repost it if that's helpful to anyone. I will tell you, I'm obsessed with Simon Sinek. I don't know if anybody else follows Simon. I love his little videos and I like his optimistic view on life, but he had a really short 3-minute video up 2 weeks ago that he talked about a coaching analogy and said, when you're trying to build a good team, by appeasing the fans but ignoring your players, it's not going to work. And I thought that was such a clear picture of what we're trying to do behind the scenes in the brokerage, right? Or any of us trying to build any sort of team. It doesn't even matter if you bring it in your first player. If you ignore the player to just go after the fans, that's not what you're trying to do. That's not going to get you to the goal. So the touch calendar that Christy's talking about that we'll reshare with everybody, is to me how we take care of the team behind the scenes. And again, it's that take care of people who take care of people. So if we take care of the team and then let the team be empowered to go take care of the consumer and the client, then it all comes back to us. I love that in our business, and this was taught way before I came to my seat, but you do the right thing, take care of the person in front of you and the business will be there. It will show up. And so I think one of the things I'm most passionate about is driving those cultural pieces inside of the team, because I know that means it will take care of the rest, and that the business will be there. So a few of the practical things on that list would just be acknowledging team members, like making sure that they feel seen and feel, valued. And it's, like I said, it was carving out space to intentionally connect with them. And that may be big settings or little. So the big settings for us are our annual team gala. We invite them to invite a spouse or a loved one to come to that with them. And it's not a formal event, even though it sounds like it. It's usually a themed event because the pictures are better and it looks like more fun. And it is generally when you can wear a wig and be silly together. And so it builds memories together, which builds that camaraderie, which then turns into retention, right? So we do this gala every year. We celebrate loyalty and longevity in the business at that every year. So this last year, I was so excited. We had 18 team members that have been with us for more than 5 years, wow, which, as you all know, is a really big deal. So celebrating that and honoring their commitment. We don't build this by ourselves. We build this with them. So honoring that commitment is so important if we want them to stay. We take that same group of people that we honor at that big event with everyone on a little bit more of like a special thing in the fall. So we just had this last week, actually. You didn't see it on social media. We didn't post it. We don't do it for recruitment. We do it to take care of the people that have been with us, because the people that have been with us are then going to turn around and sing our praises to the people that they know in the market that would be a good fit for the team. And so last week, those folks got to go. We went on a yacht. We took them out for the day on the water, tried to do something kind of social distancing responsible, went to a nice dinner, like up on a terrace at a hotel, and then came back to Orlando. So just providing opportunities to honor loyalty in your calendar and how you're touching, I think, is super important. We also rally around a charity together because it gives us that bigger than ourselves purpose. and connection to the community. Admin day last year, we took our admin shopping and gave them some cash and said, you have, I think it was 3 hours to go spend this on yourself. And then we did a happy hour afterwards where we gathered everybody back off and they showed off the shoes or the whatever that they bought. And we sort of joked, like, if you don't spend it, you have to give it back. So you have to go spend it right now. They are still to this day talking about that because it was out of the box. It was unexpected, but really it was just celebrating them on admin day, but it was calendared. It was on the calendar for the year that we were going to do something special for them. Again, I'll put up our touches so you have all of them, but I think it's just being really intentional with the time you have to care for your people, and then trusting that if you do the work, the retention will come from doing the work.
I want to kind of just maybe wrap that up with what I'm hearing you say is, I think a lot of times our teams focus on teaching people how to do this, how to follow this system, how to, you know, what your scripts are, but we forget to help them learn how to think. How are we helping them learn how to think? How are we helping them feel? And then how are we telling the story as operations people? As operations people, I think we are the storyteller of the lore of our company. Every company has their own company lore. And all of you ladies have been with your companies a long time, 3 years. Emily, how I forget how long you've been, 7?
5.5.
5. And
Yeah.
Callie, you've been with Sheena, what, 4 or 5? So you have sort of the history and the lore and the stories that, what is the story of your culture that you're telling through your everyday, not just your words, but your actions. So I think that kind of wrapped it up, unless you guys have more questions. Thank you guys so much.
I think just following up on that real quick is, while you're kind of in the place to where you're rebuilding or just initially building, be open to what the rest of your organization has to say about it, because you don't necessarily know what they need, even when you're building systems. When it's an operations person building a system for agents in the field, you have to be receptive to them saying, hey, this is what I need, this is what I want to change, this is what I like. But then also for the culture piece, so asking them, hey, what is it that the team does well? What do you think? This is one thing that you taught me, Christy, is like do, ditch, or something else, something like that. So what is delegate? Yeah. So what is the team doing well? What would you like to see the team do differently? And kind of any other suggestions that you have. And so something really powerful is, yes, we've gone down a ton in agent count, but we sent that Google form out to them to fill out. And almost every single one of them said what they like about the team and what the team does well is culture. So I don't know if we would have gotten that same answer 6 months ago.
So you can send out a quarterly, that's a system, send out a quarterly 3-question survey. What should we keep doing? What should we stop doing? What should we start doing? Super easy. And if people don't fill it out, it's because they're happy, but if they're on one extreme or the other, they're going to give you the feedback. Love it.
Thank you guys. That was amazing. First of all, so number one, that was so great. Number two, I just think it's fascinating. Like when you hear you all talk about your teams, right? Like I want to go join all your teams because you guys create an environment and an atmosphere that's really powerful. And I think, a lot of teams complain about attrition or agents complaining about the splits or all of these other side things. And what I don't think a lot of people realize is they just keep looking for more people, right? Like, let me find these people that want to work for cheap. And let me find these people that want to, all this stuff. And then if they just focused on implementing a lot of these ideas and the things that you guys have done well, I think they would find that they wouldn't have those problems and they wouldn't be in those conversations, right? Like the $300, I know people out there who have balked at that idea and said $300 spending spree, that's stupid, right? But the $300 spent on admin day for that is going to yield you a massive excess in return for having been thoughtful and giving them that moment. When you think about, you've got agent, rainmaker, and you've got all the agents on your team, it's like the bread. You put the 2 pieces of bread together, they're not going to stick. But you put the peanut butter and jelly in the middle, like the operations people, and damn, that's a good sandwich. Okay, maybe you don't like peanut butter and jelly, but you get the point. Personally, I don't, but yes, I do get the
You can
point.
put a little Grey Poupon or, whatever.
I'll never look at a peanut butter and jelly sandwich the same way again. So thank you all, ladies. You have been amazing. And I'm sure if we have follow-up questions, we can harass you in the group and you guys will share all your good stuff in there.
And John, let us just point out that we talked about kind of making history here with our group, and I think a lot of other panels where it was all women and we did not call it a lady panel or a woman panel. It's just a boss panel.
Ain't no such thing as a lady boss. So y'all are just bosses and we really appreciate you. So thank you so much. Really
Thank
appreciate
you, guys.
Well,
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to break up into breakout sessions here. So if you have to run to the potty, do that right now in 2 seconds, and I'm gonna send you all to breakout rooms right now.
Super powerful.
Thank you.
All right.
You're a good moderator. Kelly, how are you?
hello.
Hi.
That was awesome.
Thank you. I love your tree behind your head. That's so
Oh.
pretty.
Thank you. I didn't realize I was going to be on camera today, so you'll have to excuse.
There's
That's how
no
I felt yesterday, actually.
there's no judgment here whatsoever.
This is Messy Middle Mastermind. You can
Well,
be yourself here.
That's
It's
right.
messy.
John, I don't know if you want Jenny and I in the same group. That could be
Oh,
dangerous. I'm just
I-
saying.
I was like, oh, well, that's fine.
We might just distract each other
like-
to death over here.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna steal you both. I don't really care. Sorry, too late. I actually am curious to get both of your perspectives as well on some of this stuff. And we'll see if Todd, and I have a couple other people here. But if either of you get bored of this room, let me know. I'm happy to move you to another room. Jenny, you have a very special partner here in
I
Miss
do.
Emily.
We do. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you're no slouch either.
Most days she's not a
Some
slouch.
days.
I'm just kidding.
I don't think Emily would have stuck around if that was the case. Hey Joe,
I'm
how's it
pretty
going?
sure I'm on her calendar. That's what I'm just.
Multiple times a day, just for the record.
Emily, when we come back in the group, will you type in what WeMate is? Because I meant to ask you that question
Yeah.
and I didn't get around to that.
Yeah, I need to put my book list out there too. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, describe WeMate right now. I want to hear.
Yeah, so we call each other WeMates instead of teammates, which they've been doing for years and years. But we picked this up as our culture piece. So WeMate is always we, never I. And then mates, everything's an acronym. So it's masters of our craft, accountable for our actions. We're gonna have teachable spirits, we'll elevate others, and we're gonna be solution-based. So John, if you're my teammate and I say, hey, or you're my WeMate, I'm calling you to our culture code every time I use the word WeMate. So every system we build, every interaction we have, whether it's email, conversation, whatever it is, all gets put up against that word of, am I being a good WeMate? Am I representing the team in a way that's going to fulfill all of those pieces. So rather than people having to memorize like a big, long vision or mission statement, we just call them we mates, and then they know what we're calling them to. It's very clear. And then we ask them to live into that.
And does that come up like a lot? Like, is that like a daily thing that we taught, like we mates is like out there just all the time, right?
Yeah, all the time.
What's cool about that is like, it's just a conditioned response then. And you just, because it's a cool term and whatever, right? And you'll see like a lot of successful people do this, right? Like the Lady Gaga has her, like, what are her, like the little monsters are her like fans or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
There's like, it's a branding thing too, right? Because when you give people, like you give your tribe a name, then they will respond accordingly. So I think it's a really cool system.
People want to rise up and be identified with something beyond themselves and be part of something bigger. And that's what I love about that We Mate thing. It calls you to be your best self, just with one word.
Well, and it's internal, external. So external, most people don't know that it has all of that meaning, but we have vendor partners, we have customers and clients that call us We Mates, and they'll say, oh, the We Mates helped. And they have no idea the like deeper, it's starting to leak out. Like the more speaking that we do and the more people that it's coming out at this point. But internally, we talk about it all the time. It gets put into our team meetings. It's in our communication with people. It's even in our training, how we teach people to write. So always we, never I, which is our first We Mate standard, means when you write an email, you write it as we. Like I have conditioned myself to reread everything that I write and go back and say, did I use I? Do I need to change it to we? It's just a habit. Like I will do it on personal text sometimes because I'm in a habit of writing we instead of I. And people either assume Jenny or my husband, Andrew. I'm not sure which one, but it's we always.
That's a really, I've never heard that before in my life. And that's really cool to like, everything is we. And I'll catch myself like, cause I have a partner. And so sometimes like I'll put I, and then I have to go back and delete it. Cause I'm like, you want to set the standard, right? If you ever want to get to a point where you don't have to be the person to have every single conversation, you have to empower your people in such a way that the client understands that it's not, they don't want me. I'm not the best person for most of the things that people want to talk to me about, right? Like you don't want me at an open house. You don't want me like working on your spreadsheet. Like I'm the wrong guy. And so that's cool. I think that's a really, really neat trick. Joe, I'm curious, what was, or Jenny, did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I was just going to give you a quick quip about Emily. When you say, is that everywhere? It is everywhere. And she picks, like this month with her the staff, they're working on elevating others. So each week they have a task, each staff member has a task. And she shared with me just this morning that each staff member is finding somebody at our title company to elevate and sending them a positive message. Title company doesn't know that, but we're elevating others even outside of our team. So it's not just, we're not just talking the talk, we're walking the walk. And she is teaching them to find those moments to elevate others. She does it for others and people catch on, and the right culture catches on versus then, it's really easy to catch on to the negative stuff too, right? But she keeps us going forward in the positive thinking, but it's calendared and it's a plan.
It's really crazy. I loved that she was like, we didn't put it on social media. And I was like, that's so funny because it's so intentional, right? And it seems like a little thing, but I think it's a big thing. And I might even be the one to be like, no, you should put it on social media. But like, I get that you want to keep that sacred, and that's really cool. And I think a lot of what you talk about is you're very authentic and you teach your people how to do this. But what's the fringe benefit is when you behave in that manner, when you are in culture, you have a more fulfilled life, right? You're happier because you're in service of others and you have this like cool team mindset and whatnot. I was just going to ask you guys one last thing, and then I want to ask Joanna a question, but do you guys have jerseys? You need like We Mate jerseys.
Oh, we have swag upon swag. We're dripping in swag. We all fly the same flag. So that is our Christmas gift to everybody every year, is another piece of swag. So we just got jackets at the yacht, and we do t-shirts. We have so many t-shirts we could make a quilt. Our agents wear collared shirts with their logos on it. We've got hats, you name it. but it's part of the culture, right?
Yeah.
We all are really proud to be we mates and, you know, work for the Weimer Group.
Okay, but our favorite swag item, John, and steal this, everybody on this call, is involve your agents' families and your staff's families. So our kids get a new t-shirt every year from us at Christmas. So we wrap them up at our Christmas breakfast or holiday breakfast. Our agents are able to pick those up. They take them home. The kids open them. We ask for pictures so that we can post. The kids like being famous because they're on the internet. Like, it's fun for them. When they come to team events, they now have their shirt that they can wear. So we're we mates, but the little ones are we 2E mates. So we have we mates and we mate, right? See, I told you.
I am dead. That is the best thing I've heard in my life.
Well, we say real estate's a family business. I mean, the hours aren't normal, even whether you're staff or not. Like, the hours are strange and they impede. So involving.
My parents were both real estate agents, and so is my stepdad. So trust me, I understand real estate is a family business, and that becomes the dinner table conversation, right? And one of the smartest people I know is Cody K. Kane, and she taught me a really valuable lesson a long time ago, which was, you know, if you spend more time on your people's spouse than you do on your people, because at the end of the day, when they go home after a hard day of work or something went wrong at the office or whatever, if they go home to a spouse that like loves you and is like, hey, well, don't you think that, you know, Jenny was just and starts defending you, versus going home to a spouse that's like, oh yeah, well, Jenny, you know, she just probably wants more money for her Mercedes and like, right? Like, those are two very different worlds. And you want them to go home to that world where they like give you the benefit of the doubt. And then I heard another cool thing, which is where John Glutch in Arizona, when he borrows somebody, so like if we went to Ops Boss retreat for 2 days, he sends a thing to their spouse that's like, thank you for letting me borrow your spouse for a couple days, which is like, again, just you know how much flack I took from my wife for going out of town for 2 days for a mastermind retreat in San Diego, like literally gone for like
My husband literally shoves me out the door and he's like, don't you need to go teach this month down in Greenville, South Carolina? Because Haro, you guys know Haro.
Yeah.
Haro always sends him a bottle of whiskey, like a different kind each time. Like, he's like, go teach.
I love it. That's awesome. Joanna, what was your takeaways from the mastermind? I'd love to hear.
I just love that this little breakout group right here is amazing. I love the we mate. We have a similar thing. Ours is happy, and then we have the different H is something A, and you know, we have the different things. So I would love to see yours spelled out, Emily, that if you could put it in the chat, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
But you know, the whole thing about I versus we is huge. I mean, we have just a tiny team. So it's me, my amazing admin, and then I have another agent and my husband as well. And everything is we, all of our, like the emails, when we email clients, the whole conversation is we. And the other thing too, that we do all the time is, like, when somebody comes to me with a question, I always flip it back and say, what do you think? Because I think that's just training people and telling them and showing them that we trust them and we value their opinion and what would they do in that situation. It doesn't have to be me answering. It doesn't have to be me figuring it out. Megan can figure it out on her own, but many times she'll come to me and say, well, what should I do about this? Or what should we do about that? And I say, what do you think we should do? And I'm seeing, as I'm doing that more and more, that growth in her, where she just steps it up and she doesn't even, or she'll come to me and say, I'm doing this on this situation. You know, do you agree? Which I think is great, because like you just said, John, if we want to step out of this at some point, we need to have people that can take over. So.
Yeah, we have to empower our people. And, you know, I put that comment in the box, but it was how many teams like say they have an open door policy and how many like really live it, right? And create that, because you have to build the trust. And like, you can't just expect an employee to come in and have a difficult conversation with you that you've never created that room for. And so, yeah, I think it's a big part of, they have to know you care.
Right.
I was, a younger me was very cavalier, and my stepdad said that to me, that line. And I was like, oh no, people just want to like whatever. I kind of brushed it off. And I always think back to that, because I have come to realize that more than anything in life, in any way, shape or form, that caring portion, if that doesn't lead the way, the rest of it's just noise, right? There's not much value there. Kelly, what about you? Do you have any ahas you want to share, or any questions for Emily or Jenny or Christy?
There was a lot of takeaways. Me now, we're kind of in a restructuring at the moment, but we do use the pronouns we, us to set the stage for the pass the baton is what we use for the agents to get used to the team when we pass it over to, from the agent to the TC, or to the listing, from the, agent to the listing agent. And then I look at it at the end when we get the review, if they recognize a team effort versus just the agent effort, as that was a win for us and that we did a good job. Especially, we also have property management, and so at times they will also they'll say it was great from property management all the way to the end, and so I look at that as a win. So we are careful, to pass that baton and set those email templates to say, we, us, they, all together. But I love that when you treat people right, the business will come, and that is what we base our business around.
That's
so
awesome.
I wrote that down as well.
I heard somebody say recently they also track that, like as far as like an expectation when you measure like your ops people's numbers, like to make it a goal to get like one review that mentions you per quarter, because a lot of times you're right, the reviews say the agent or whatever, and so if they know, and they said don't like set the bar, don't say like get 100 of them, right? But like just put one, like just to put it on purpose, so that the ops person like thinks a little more about it and tries a little harder to be able to make that personal connection, because a lot of that humanity, like I don't think any of you guys, right, but like there's ops teams that are just pushing paper and that are just there to be functional, right? Versus there's ops teams like you guys that are fiduciaries, and the relationship is hugely important, and you convey that at all those opportunities, because really who has a better chance to develop the relationship with the client, right? The ops team or the agent, right? The agent wants to think it's them, but ultimately.
Well, and that's the one thing that the top producing single agent is going to use against anyone with an admin team. They are going to talk about how you're just a number and they don't know who you are, and you're going to get passed from person to person. And yet this is their biggest advantage coming with us, is that we are a team and we can take better care of them. So we better deliver that to them. Love that.
Jenny, how do your people sell the team concept in appointments or in the world? Like how is that? Because you have an amazing admin component. So how is that marketed or sold, to Christy's point?
Yeah, in a nutshell, the clients are getting 59 experts for the price of one that are all working towards selling their property, right? And every time another WeMate or teammate comes into play, they are getting either somebody in their field that's an expert, and they're going to be in better hands than they were with, let's say, the agent, right? So what somebody talked about, passing the baton, we call it passing the pink ball. I don't know where the pink ball came from. It's something we've carried along with us for 5 years, but it's about carrying the client's story from us, the agent, to the TC, so that the client never has to repeat their story. They feel like they are in better hands than they were left, and they never even look back or think they were handed off. And when you look at our testimonials, you see that, because they'll mention 4 or 5 people in our testimonials. It's the craziest thing, but they built a relationship with each person along the way, and we're grateful for their expertise in each position. So You know, that's from our photographer to our client coordinators to our listing marketing people, like, and they know their names and they remember them and they shout them out. We don't even ask them to do that. It's just something that people feel compelled to do. But that's because we actively train that, we work on it. It's in our training, in our teachings every day. And it's the most important thing. It's that client experience you guys talked about. But you have to work on it. It doesn't happen magically. And you have to remind your agents of the value that you bring and that they're important to each other and that there's value in being on a team. And it's lonely out there if you're not on a team. I mean, you have to remind people of the value constantly.
Well, and it's a both and, right? So you're reminding them of the value of the power of the team, but you're also giving them the script. So then when they go out and talk to the client, they have the right words and they have that language. So it builds the retention and the trust, but it also makes them better agents and makes them able to use our language out on the other side too. So it works kind of both ways.
Where does that like scripting live in the schedule?
Well, it starts at training, like onboarding. So when they come in, it's slowing down off the first couple of days and having at the start of it culture conversations. What's our origin story? What's our history? Again, you're coming into the middle of the story. So at what entry point, where have we been and where are we going? And now you're in the middle. And next time we have this group, you're going to be a part of, you're behind in the history. So we get to talk about those pieces. WeMake gets covered all in that upfront part. So all of the scriptings on who we're going to be and the expectation are covered in interviews when we're trying to make a match, but also recovered in those first couple of hours of onboarding. Then from there in like practical training, that's where they're getting the scripts. That's where they're getting how do we talk about this with the sellers? How do we talk about this with the buyers? And WeMates leads us down all those paths automatically. Because if we're going to be masters of our crafts, right? Like you have to know your stuff. You have to be an expert in your contracts. You have to be an expert at negotiations. If you're going to have a teachable spirit, not only are you going to be a master at it, you're also going to need to keep getting better at it as you go along. And so that's where I think WeMates has been so magical for us, because everything can literally be measured up against it. But practically, it starts at training. We are constantly reteaching it in team meetings. We do a listing team meeting every other week where we dive into our listings all together, and we're training on those scripts in specific. And I would say every chance we get, we're throwing the scripts out there. Like it's even in our languaging on behind the scenes team Facebook posts, like, don't forget to share this. Don't forget to say that. Don't forget, like just the little tips and tricks and reminders.
Again, that stuff's hard, right? To like be consistent and to get it out there. But that's ammunition, right? You said it's not just to condition them to be comfortable or content or whatever it is with the team, right? It's also to go out and give them, the scripts and dialogues that they need to be able to move forward and represent your brand and everything like that in a way that feels like really helpful and awesome.
What I've heard you get, can I just jump in for a second, John?
Yeah, Christy, go ahead.
What I'm hearing you say, and I think it's so brilliant, your leadership is incredible, by the way. And because I say that every other day on Facebook. They were my favorite interview last year. But you're teaching people that they're not just performing a function, they're fulfilling a mission. And that starts, like you said, like I think back to when I was on my team and we delivered our pre-listing package to the people. And the person that did that his title was ambassador, Belt Team Ambassador. And he wasn't just a courier. It was my dad. He was like in his, 80. He wasn't just a courier delivering a package and letting us know that the person got it. He carried the story back to us. And I love when Jenny just said, how are you carrying the story? Like I'm a big visual person. Someone's story is really important. Like you have to tenderly care and hand that story to the next person. And we get so involved in the function that we forget that part. And I love that you guys have systemized and just invigorated your team through the WeMate to be able to do that. Like that's just brilliant.
Yeah, nowadays it's really important to do that with emotional ties, right? Because a client in these systemized teams is passed along to a lot of different points, right? And so they'll develop a great relationship with the ISA, because that's ISA's job to get them to finally raise their hand and say, yes, I'll take a meeting. And then they're like, great, I'm ready to meet with you. And they're like, you're not meeting with me. And so it's like, wait, but we just have this relationship. And they're like, yeah, but if you like me, you'll love Danny. He's the best, right? And figuring out how to do those transitions. But then when Danny walks in, like he has the 6 months of notes, right? And those have to be in the database to be able to tell that story, or they have to be debriefed or whatever it is, right? To be able to just pick up. You know, my dentist, I tell people all the time, I refer a ton of people to my dentist because she's the same way, right? She's just like a database master. So I see her like twice a year. But when I walk in, like everyone on her staff is like, John, it's so good to see you. How's Bennett? How's Campbell? Like they know about my kids and like just stuff that, and I know what she's doing because, you know, I do this, but like most of her clients, I'm sure, just think like, holy crap, like these people really. My question was going to be around your vendors. Do you guys have anything systematic that you do to show, you know, relationship or appreciation or culture with your team outside your team?
Are you asking us?
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to make sure we're not the only ones talking.
Yeah, right.
No. All of you, but specifically you, because you guys are so dialed. Sorry, I'm just diving in because I'm curious.
No, that's fine. We can answer that question. I just want to make sure we're not overtaking the space and making sure everybody else gets to share. Yeah. So yes, number one, we try to make sure that the relationships make sense for the team, which I think is the way you start by honoring those relationships. So are we in these relationships because they're the right relationships, or just because it happens to be whoever's standing at the door offering a perk? And that's not like, Jenny always says, you can't buy your way onto like our team. That's not how it works. So for us, it's about finding matches and then honoring those relationships by giving them time and space with the team, and honoring the team by not dragging them through all kinds of just random vendor space. Like that doesn't make sense either. So it's really being intentional about when are these guys going to intersect with the team? What events can they intersect with the team, or what team meetings, how much space during those meetings are we going to allow? And then behind the scenes, how do we set them up for a win? So if a teammate is bragging on a lender behind the scenes, I will a lot of times just shoot off a quick email and say, hey, so-and-so is bragging about you in the office today. Just wanted you to know. And that goes such a long way to build trust between that agent and the other party, right? So it's just listening and taking the 30 seconds it takes to fire off. I fired off an email like that yesterday. And that lender, I'm sure I can almost picture it, right? They sit up in their seat and they're like, all right, I'm doing it. And then they go out and they do the right next thing because they just got built up behind the scenes. So as leadership, we're looking for like the personal way to accolade, and then teaching our agents to do it too. We've had seasons where we've said, hey, go love on a lender today. Or like Jenny said earlier, like I sent our behind the scenes staff this week was to pick a title rep that's gone the extra mile this week and to reach out and personally just accolade them and say thank you, because they don't get enough love in that world over there sometimes from us. But I think it's just being intentional. We do invite them into a couple of our events per year. Like our team retreat is coming up and they're allowed to come out for the day. We have 4 preferred lenders that we work with on the team. They are all aware of each other. They are respectful towards each other. They understand that we are working in partnership and they're not going to get every deal because they may not have the right product or they may not be the perfect fit. They're actually passing, a few of them have learned to pass deals to each other. Like they are embodying our culture now off record, which I love. But we invite them.
We set that expectation too. We set that expectation with them and say, you can't, we don't allow them to like offer out contests. This one's going to give away a cruise if they get so many deals. It's not allowed. They have every right to join into our team when they're part of our team, and in those events, they can, build individual relationships, but we're not giving any one of them a leg up over the others. And they're not allowed to feel entitled to anyone's business, because we're telling our agents to place their clients based on personality or best fits and not feel guilty about it. But at the same time, try to use our preferred vendors because it gives us a lot of power in the transactions, right? But we are only working with the best. Like Emily said, we don't let vendors in the door. They could offer us $1 million and we won't let them in because the cost on the backside of that, if they're bad, is huge, because the agents are frustrated that they don't have a say in who they're choosing. They're not getting the money from the vendors. It's a debacle. So you have to have buy-in from your agents. You have to have You have to have the vendors understand your mission and be in line with it.
One of the things that we always did in looking for our vendor partnerships is we were always very personal growth based with our team. So we wanted to make sure that our vendors were personal growth based. And so what that meant is we often could do things together. Like we had a lender that would run our book club and we would participate together, whoever wanted to be in the book club. So you're getting to know each other and getting into relationship beyond just the business relationship. And so if you're looking for people who match your culture and your values, you know, in general, is there more than they have the right products and all that stuff?
You know
it
what I love?
naturally becomes a good partnership.
I love about that is like, you can't be a prophet in your own backyard. And so sometimes when they hear it from like a lender or a different person, it sticks differently. So
Yep.
like, I love the idea of having a lender come in to like talk about or to lead generation, right? Or like whatever, right? There's so many different ways you could insert or intertwine those things, but like, these are all professionals. These are all business owners. These are all, you know, very highly skilled people, or they wouldn't be working with us. So why are we only using their given trade as our, you know, resource when they have so much more they could give us that's, you know, far paramount to like you said, the $1,000.
I make the same practice at our retreat when we have speakers. If they're going to speak and they're a vendor, they don't talk about their product. They have some other area of expertise outside of this that they share with the group.
I think that's really, really smart. All right, guys, I'm going to close all the rooms. Any final shares, thoughts? You have a minute to share if you'd like to.
I have a question in terms of the vendors, because I'm just kind of starting this year. It's to get kind of those vendors relationships up and going in a more of a concrete way. Do you like, when it comes to like referral, like, do they need to feed you business, or like what's kind of the give and take between you and your vendors? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We're going out in 20 seconds. We don't look for the referrals. They don't really have access to a lot of referrals. I think that is, you know, especially at the volume that we do, we're looking for excellent customer service, and they're getting us to the closing table with the least amount of stress. And then they have to assist us in paying for the lead generation, because on the buy side, we're both chasing buyers. On the list side, title and realtors are chasing the title lead.
All right, how's it going, everybody? Good, thumbs up. Everybody had a good breakout. Jenny was just finishing talking, and she was saying that you guys are chasing the same side of the business together. So that's how the vendors participate, not through direct referrals, which is something that I've been talking about before, which is, you know, do you expect your vendor partners to refer you business? And she made an interesting point that at the volume they do, no. It's a different type of partnership, which is cool. So thank you all. I'd love it for some people to step up and share some of the ahas that they got either from the initial panel or from their small group mastermind. Who wants to share some things that they learned today so far? I will pick on you if you don't volunteer.
I'll volunteer. As Emily and I are starting our team, that struggle of how do you make your clients and the team in general feel as one, and like not passing off the baton. So just listening about that and that language that you use is very important, very eye-opening. And then also as I kind of run the back end of the operations to make sure that your admins and everybody else that helps you feels part of the team, and that they're just not there as a clock in and clock out, is a good reminder for me going forward.
Awesome. I love that. Who else wants to share an aha they had? What did you guys learn? There's lots of nuggets. Not letting anybody off the hook here. Sheena, you have an aha so far? I know you learned a lot.
I'll share one.
Megan, go.
Yeah, so I was in the breakout with Kristen, and one part that I really liked is, we kind of talked about accountability and how, as the rainmaker, a lot of time that responsibility inevitably falls upon us, and then we're the bad guys and so forth. So kind of her advice that she shared was making it more systematic so that they hold themselves accountable and that they can see, okay, I'm not hitting my goals and so forth. So you're not being the bad guy harping on them for numbers and this, that, and the other, but it's kind of more self-managed and self-awareness. Those conversations are still being had, but it's not like, you are not doing this. So I thought that was good.
Does everybody know that the "you are not doing this" conversation is not a top return on investment? Not a great, maybe not a great cultural piece. I guess there's some teams. I guarantee you, there's a team out there that does that and it works. So I won't speak to everyone's culture, but in general, who else has an aha they would like to share? Thanks, Megan.
I'll go. I loved what we were talking about with the touch calendar for teammates. That's something that Megan brought back from Christy's Ops Boss retreat, and she has just been rocking that. She has it's built into our 30-60-90 for new team members. She has all these different touch points, like their first, like when they first start, she does like she goes out and she gets like a little desk accessories and things like that to make them feel special. Their first deal, we do a little celebration for a first deal. Just all kinds of little touches that I know. I mean, I don't even think of those things. So it's really cool. And she is the one who is leading that charge, but it's coming from all of us, which is really cool.
Will you please drop it in the files in the group?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Emily, I know you already shared yours, so we can find that in the group as well. And if anybody else has any other cool ways that they love on their people and they systematically stay in relationship with their team members and make sure that they're doing a good job, I want to take all your ideas and use them on my family to make sure that I'm the best dad and husband I can be. So that's I'm stealing that personally. All right, I'm gonna talk for 1 second. So would you guys give me a thumbs up or put something in the comments? Are you guys enjoying this so far, yesterday and today? Has this been righteous? Has it been awesome? Exactly, more than you expected? I see a lot of thumbs up. I'm getting at least a handful, which is good. And I don't know, not half of you, but a third of you maybe were in Nashville and experienced our in-person off the record event. And some of you I've never met before, which is amazing. Thank you for coming. Better than I expected, says Emily. So if you guys think this is good, what we pulled off in Nashville was one of the most incredible couple of days I've ever had in my entire life. And I think most of the people who are in Nashville would say the same thing. And we do still have a few tickets left for our Austin event, which is going to be next year. So it was supposed to be this week. It was supposed to be today. It got pushed, obviously, because of COVID. And so if you think that you would like more of this, if you would like this event kind of on steroids, if you'd like to get into a space that really is holistic, that can form incredibly deep relationships, that can talk about things that you're not getting in any other room, hit me up. I don't have the tickets available where you can just go buy them on a link. And to be honest, we kept it really small on purpose. It's not your $199 mastermind. This is at a luxury winery in Austin. It's going to be a deep dive with the right people. And so we put the ticket price to discourage the wrong people. We limit it to 40 people because we don't really need more than that. It keeps it at a phenomenal group size, and we would love for you to join us. So it's going to be really, really incredible. If you're interested, please reach out to me or Sheena privately and let us know. We're happy to share the details of that with you. We do have just a couple of spots left for that. And,
John, I'm going to hijack to give you a plug for just a moment.
Let me, well, if you're going to hijack, let me spotlight you. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready for my close up. This is Messy Middle. Like I said, I haven't showered today. We love you as you are. Last year's event, I cannot articulate well enough how pivotal it was for me to be in a room with a bunch of people who had brains like me. I walked in with the world's lowest self-esteem as a leader. I had been broken down by my team for so long. I had no idea what was wrong, and it was able to completely right the ship and let the bridge burn for, you know, the people that I needed to let go, and to be comfortable to build the team that I wanted to build. And this is the first time that I have accomplished the goals that I set out to do with a bunch of people who are pointed in the same direction and just as excited to do it with me. And half my team is on this call today. So it was the thing that made our team. It was the relationships. It was the people that I could reach out to. It was the masterminds. It was the systems that people brought. It was the little nuggets that we took away. It was absolute magic. And the dancing was also amazing. But this is the thing that my business needed. And if you're a little team or just starting a team, this is why you're here, because you can go. And if you want to have 59 people on your team, you can do that. I don't want to have 59 yet, but maybe someday. Anyway, so thank you. Thank you for showing up, and invite your friends.
Thank you. I have to agree. It was amazing. And I put most of this on John because it was his vision and he carried it out in a way that was just so spectacular. And I've been to every mega camp, every family reunion since I joined. And it's a really, really special group of people. Oh, wow. I'm really, okay. You can now see the toy room that I'm in. But it was amazing. Should I do one more plug for amputee blade runners? Are you
Yes,
ready to?
please.
Okay, so I don't want to say what we're up to yet in front of John because we have exceeded our goal. But if you got anything, even one nugget from today, and you're about to get a whole lot more, please Venmo me. It's in the Messy Middle group. Sheena-Sadam is my Venmo. We are going to donate all of the funds to Amputee Blade Runners, which provides grants to people who need who need prosthetics to be able to run and work out. So it's a really great program. John White, who's about to speak, one of his children was one of the lucky beneficiaries of this organization. So it means a lot to him. And if you haven't heard from him yet, you'll see what a special guy he is. And he deserves every single bit of support from us. So thank you all. Again, check the Venmo, Sheena-Sadam, SAYDAM. Thank you very much.
All right, and thank you again, guys. So if you have interest in more of this, please reach out to me and private message me on Facebook or shoot me a text or reach out, because if you put it in the chat, I will try and remember, but I might have forgotten. So without further ado, let us bring on John White, the man, the myth, the legend. If you were here yesterday, you know that this guy is powerful. When he talks about his business, you know, this isn't I sold 5 homes or 100 homes or did $1 million in commissions. This is, you know, we're talking about mega stuff in the industry with billions of dollars of client money on the line. So he is an amazing speaker, and we are so lucky to have him and really appreciate more than anything, not his smarts, which he's very smart, but his heart, right? This is a guy who leads from the heart, and you know he cares. So without further ado, John, take it away, my friend.
All right, thank you. You all are sure good for the ego. I'll tell you that much. If you're ever feeling down on yourself, call John and Sheena and just have a conference chat, and in 10 minutes or less, they'll have you boosted up and ready to go. So how many, John, Sheena, do we know how many people we have? Do we have new people today that we didn't have yesterday?
Yeah, we do. We have some.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so let me backtrack for 2 seconds, and I won't spend long on this, I promise. But that way the new folks get a bit of a view. Can you see my PowerPoint, John? I'm looking for you.
Yep,
thumbs.
we are good. And I'm going to take myself off here. I didn't even know I could do that.
All right, so just a quick introduction. I believe firmly that people are the starting point. I think too often we forget that, and we jump right into the business or right into the training or the learning or whatever it is. And it's just proven scientifically that if you don't engage the heart and the mind, you don't get the discretionary effort. And discretionary effort is what, as leaders, we could or should wake up every day and search for. And so just a little bit about me. I have the honor of working at a local family-owned electrical contractor. They're about 81 years old. And we're approaching 300 employees, so we're getting bigger from when we started. My background before that was I spent time at Marriott Hotels, Dell Computer, and Asurion in roles spanning from HR to manufacturing, technology, strategy, growth, both domestic and international. And so just a touch about me. The reason I ended up at a small local family-owned contractor was because of all of these people in this picture. And so this is my family. They are what I always go back to. And yes, we have 9 children. So if you're sitting there counting the screen, there's 9 of them. And so we have 3 biological daughters, Caitlin, Riley, and Grayson. And then we have 6 adopted kiddos from China, Chris, Natalie, Sam, Molly, Zach, and Miss Leah. And so they're the reason and the motivation and the push every day is to try to leave the world a little bit better than I found it, to try to help them. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time talking about culture. And we spent a lot of time talking about this culture compass and what it means. And just like anything else in our lives, if we don't have a compass, if we don't have a direction or a true north, then we end up somewhere where we didn't want to be. And I forgot the math. I'm not a very good pilot. In fact, I've never tried. But if you take off from, does anybody else see that? Does anybody see the green line across the screen?
Yep.
Yeah. That's really weird. Okay, it's gone now. I didn't touch anything, so hello. Interesting, they drew a line and it wasn't straight, because that is the analogy. If you take off from Nashville, Tennessee, and you're flying to LA, if you're 1 degree off and you're heading, you end up at a very different part of the country, whether north or south. You will not end up anywhere near LA. And then you can extend that. So if you're trying to fly to Hawaii and you take off from, Chicago and you're 1 degree off, you end up somewhere in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And so your team is very much the same way, and your business is the same way. If you don't have a true north, if you don't have a compass that's guiding you, then you'll end up in those places. And yesterday we spent a lot of time talking about that and about culture and those things. And today we're going to talk a little bit more specifically, and I'm going to hopefully give you some tools and things that you can think about implementing as you lead your team and as you lead yourself. So we're going to break it into 2 different chats, if you will. But I can't talk about anything if I don't first define 100% responsibility. Right. And so 100% responsibility says I am 100% responsible for my actions and my reactions, and everybody else is 0% responsible. What does that mean? That means that I can't control what happens to me. And I also believe it's a myth when people say control your emotion. I don't believe you control your emotion. Emotion is natural. It's just what happens. I believe what you can control is your reaction to those emotions. And so 100% responsibility says is that I'm going to control my reaction to my emotion, or I'm going to control how I respond, and I'm not going to give anyone else control over me. As a leader, if we don't get that, and if we don't understand it, then we can't be genuine, and we can't be what our team wants us to be. It's almost impossible. You ever, if you're married, you ever heard marriage is 50-50? Sheena, I can see you. I'm going to pick on you. Are you married?
Yes.
All right. So I want you to go to your spouse and I want you to say, hey, spouse, I am now 99% responsible for the happiness and success of our marriage. And your spouse is now 1% responsible. Sounds great if I'm the spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sheena just took 99% of it. Here's the problem. Every time something goes wrong, Sheena's going to put it in that 1%.
Yeah.
In fact, both spouses have to be 100% responsible. And you say, well, how can you have more than 100%? It's because I'm responsible for me. And so as a leader, if we don't internalize that, I think that you are completely up against almost the impossible. So I want to talk to you a little bit about world-class teams. Do you agree world-class teams are rare? I can see some of you out there. Do you agree that a true world-class team is a rare thing, right? What do I mean by world-class team? They're the team that other people want to emulate. Do anybody in Boston around here? I got any Boston people? All right, I see a hand go up there. Yep. Okay.
I'm a Pats fan.
So you're a Pats fan, right?
Yeah.
Look, I'm a Titans fan. And while we're having a much better season this year than the Patriots are, which we won't talk about that too long, the last 20 years, we can all agree we haven't. I would argue that that Patriots team has been a world-class team. They're rare.
Maybe the best ever. Yeah.
Absolutely. By far the best franchise ever over a long haul, right? If you think about dealing with salary caps and stuff like that. And so in McKinsey Quarterly back in 92, there was an article that was written called World Class Teams. And what it highlighted was a rugby team out of New Zealand called the All Blacks. And it wasn't race related, it was uniform related. They wear all black uniforms. And they won, I think off the top of my head, it was 13 world championships in a row. 13. There's no other team in the world that's ever done what this team did. And this isn't, with all due respect, a national championship like we call, the Patriots are the Super Bowl champions. That's North America, right? So that's what, roughly less than 4% of the world's population or something like that. They are 13 world championships in a row, the best. And they interviewed the general manager of the team, and he had a few insights that I want to share with you today. First of all, he had a quote in there which I just loved, which it said, the author did, which said, a special quality of effortlessness and coherence, a wholeness that other teams, no matter how good, just do not have. Yesterday we talked about, I think it was John said, well, this employee may not be a 10, but they're a solid 6. And we need 6s. I'm going to argue you don't ever need a 6. I'm going to argue you need all 10s. And then you're like, well, how do you manage all 10s? Well, because most people assume all 10s are people that want to grow and develop and do something greater in their career, and you've got to continue to reward them, or you've got to continue to promote them. I'm sorry. That is a myth. That is a leadership myth. The truth is this. The truth is that you can find 10s for the specific role that you're looking at, and they get so much fulfillment reward out of doing their job, and you're going to pay them really, really well to the market because they're worth every penny. And you build your role of 10s. I've often said I grew up a Chicago Bulls fan. If I got any Chicago people in here, I mean, I was born in 79. So who else are you going to cheer for, right? In the late 80s, early 90s. And Scotty's not Scotty without Michael, but Michael isn't Michael without Scotty. Or Scotty's not Scotty without Michael. Sorry, you get what I'm trying to say. Michael Jordan is not Michael Jordan without Scottie Pippen and without BJ Anderson and without that rest of that team. And I'm also going to argue that they were all 10 players at their spots. They were all 10s, but they didn't need the spotlight. I've met many people over my career who will say, like my boss wants me to go into management. I don't want to go into management. I just want to be a really, really good whatever. Then tell them that. Because chances are they're feeling pressure anyway to promote you. And you're like, hey, I'm good. The owner of my company asked me a couple years ago, he said, hey, do you want to be the president of the company? Do you want me to start teaching you and learn and grow to be the president of the company? I said, absolutely not. Not my role, not what I want to do. I want to do my job. I want to lead our talent team and our strategy team. I want you to pay me above the market because I think I'm worth it. And don't worry about me. I'm good. I'm 41 years old. I'm at the pinnacle of my career. I don't want to do anything else. I want to do this until I'm 65, and then I want to go sit on a boat, right? And so what makes those world-class teams, one is having a group of people that are exceptional. Then they have to, I've talked a lot about culture is easy, right? Or the defining culture is easy. Anybody remember, except John? Does anybody remember what it is, the 3 things?
The right people on a mission together.
The right people on a mission together. It all starts with the right people. Jim Collins in Good to Great talks a lot about get the right people on the bus and then figure out where to put them. I think as organizations, we hold on to the wrong people way too long. And the world-class teams are rare. They don't do that. All right. So what do they look like to the outside world? First is a lack of mistakes, right? They understand the game so well, they've practiced it so much, they do not have unforced errors. And this notion came into play in this article called Divine Discontent. And I'm going to encourage you, one, go find the article. It's not hard. Google's your friend. Although if you didn't pay attention to the news, Google got sued yesterday by the federal government on antitrust, which is really interesting. I did not realize that Google had 80% of the search for North America. That's crazy high. But Google's your friend. Go Google the article. Divine Discontent, what it says in John's words, not their words, is they're happily dissatisfied. And who likes end zone celebrations, right? You get to the end zone and you do the big celebration. Everybody likes them, right? I can't stand them. And I'll tell you why I can't stand them. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to score. If you're an offensive player and you get the ball, you're supposed to score. If you're a defensive player and you sack the quarterback, you're supposed to sack the quarterback or defend the pass or make the interception. That's what you're supposed to do. You walk in the end zone, you hand the ball to the ref, and you get ready for the next play. Right? And so I do believe in celebration, but I believe in celebrating as a team and not as an individual. And so one of the things I love about the new celebrations, at least in professional football, is the teams seem to be more involved. And Terrell Owens eating popcorn and taking selfies, playing drums, etc. Or maybe that was Ocho Cinco, but one of the two. But this divine discontent says is that I'm happily dissatisfied. I score the touchdown, I sell the house, I close the deal, whatever it is, and I ring the bell with my team, because I've been around real estate just enough, mainly with this group, and I bought 3 houses. That's my extent of my real estate deal. I do some investment, but some other guy takes care of all that. I don't have to do anything. And what I've realized is that real estate's the same. You can't sell a house by yourself. Do you agree? Like you got to have a team. Maybe you can sell one, but you can't sell. I think somebody said they're going to sell 1,000 or something this year yesterday. You can't sell 1,000 houses by yourself. The realtor who sold me my 3 houses, and she's amazing. Her ops person is what I think I heard somebody call him yesterday. She passed away the other day. It came to a screeching halt. Her whole business did, and she's one of Crylike's like top 1% realtors in the country. Came to a screeching halt. She had no backup plan. It was a complete unexpected death, right? And so divine discontent says is that I'm going to celebrate with my team because it takes a team, but I'm always going to be happily dissatisfied, because do you agree that there's always something you can do better? So leaders get this so wrong, right? And I've learned from mistakes, chief among sinners, whatever you want to say. But what I've seen leaders do is one of 2 things. Either one, we way over celebrate. And we're so in love with the idea that we won or that we accomplished something that we forget to go back and ask the question of, hey, that was good, but what could we do better? Or they win, but they're not happy. It's like, well, we won, but we could have done better. Or we didn't make as much money as we could. Or we made this one person mad. They like only focus on the negative. And divine discontent says is that you have to find a balance. It says is that what essentially it is that you are going to score the touchdown, and you're going to celebrate. But at some point, you're going to go back and you're going to look at all the plays that led to that touchdown, and you're going to refine. Does that make sense? Because now you're turning knobs, you're not turning wheels, right? But world-class teams lack mistakes. The second is they thrash their opponents. Now, I don't know about the realty business, but I'm going to make a guess. And Sheena, I'm going to look at your body language for you to tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong here. My guess is that some of you may be the dominant real estate teams in your market. And some of you may not. Some of you may want to get there. But do the consumers in your market know who the best is? Whether it's you or anyone else?
I think in general, only our close network knows.
Okay. So they don't know, like the general consumer doesn't know, like this is the best realtor in Nashville or the best realtor in Washington, D.C., et cetera?
I'd say for the most part, it's a pretty relationship-based business. I don't know
Okay.
if you all would agree with me on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I see a lot of relationships in it. Cool, thanks. Good context. So if you could put up a billboard that said, I am the #1 realtor in Washington, D.C. and define it with data. Would that drive new business?
It would drive some new business.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So thrashing their opponents is fun. Like you break their will and their spirit. And you're like, well, John, that seems not, you hold on, John, the other John just said that you led with the heart and you cared and you did all of these things. And I do all of those things. And I want our competitors to be really, really successful, but I want the jobs, I want the projects that I want first. I leave them to fight over everything else. Right? No problem. And I'll help them be really successful in those areas. But I want our customers to know that we're the best. Just like the Patriots, they want them to know that we're the best. My 3 daughters play softball, and I coach the youngest one. And we're playing in the championship tournament right now. And we played the play-in game to the tournament. And I told the girls before we went out, I said, I want you to win every inning. Every inning, you score 1 more run than the other team scores. And at the end, we don't have to worry anymore. At the end of the first inning, it was 3-2. I said, okay, hey, look, we won that inning, right? Let's go win the next inning. And they got their 3 outs. We get up to bat. At the end of that inning, it's 9-2. And I told the girls right then, I said, they don't want to play you anymore. They're done. No mistakes. Go get your 3 outs. We bat again. They're done. And we run ruled them 14-2 in the 3rd inning. They were done. And I believe that world-class teams don't just scrape home. They don't just barely get by, right? That what they do is their margin of victory is tremendous. And in real estate, that may be a little bit different, but what matters to clients, I would say I am a client. Here's what matters to me. What matters to me is, did you give me the right price? Did you make it painless through the process? And did you sell it in the timeline that I really, was good for me? Those are the 3 things, right? Like if I'm in the real estate business and I don't know those 3 measures, like I'm probably looking at those 3 measures. I'm sure there's a bazillion others, but as a customer, right, I'm guessing that's what matters. So benchmark yourself, figure out how you're doing, and can compare yourself to other people that you want to emulate or that you want to beat. And the 3rd thing that world-class teams do is they're having fun. I loved watching the Patriots, the Dodgers the other night when Mookie Betts stole 2. Right? He was having a blast. World-class teams are having fun. It is not fun to lose, and it is not fun to barely scrape by, right? It is fun to win and win big. And so they're always having fun. How do you assess talent? In the matter of time, I'm going to skip that one, and I'm going to introduce to you a tool. It's called an OKR. It's an objective and key results. Has anybody ever heard of an OKR before? I see a couple of nods and a couple of, oh, deer in the headlight looks. Okay, cool. So you can Google, there's a book, Art of the OKR, an article called The Art of the OKR. There's a lot of stuff on OKRs out there. But what an OKR does is it allows each one of your team members to set their own personal objective in a time-bound way. And they're usually the shorter, the better. I tell our folks it stands 60 to 180 days. And then they give you the key results underneath it. So this is my objective. This are my results. This is how I know I was successful. And they align with each other so that the leader of your organization has an objective and key results, and then the team has an objective and key results. But they have to come up with their objective on their own, right? So if you see here, like what I'm showing you is here you have a team leader, achieve project success like never seen before. How are we going to measure it? Profitable delivery, engage customers, and safety wins always. Well, if I'm a project manager, what is my objective? I want to beat all of my customers' expectations. How am I going to do that? I'm going to achieve material costs, build and manage schedules, and I'm going to have customers that recommend our organization. All of these have measures that go with them. And part of the OKR, what makes it so beautiful is that it's okay if you only achieve 60 or 70% of it, because it's a gigantic stretch. So if you've got a team that works for you, say you got a team of realtors, right? Do they all need the same objective? I don't think so. Because some may be really, really high performing in some areas and low performing in others, and you got a mix match. But imagine sitting down and saying, hey, Callie Morris, I want you to think about a 90-day objective for yourself that really stretches you. And what are the key results that go along with that? And hey, it's good if you only get 70 or 80% of it. No worries. What if you stretch to 100? Even better. But let's set a short-term objective, and I'm going to empower you, enable you, love you, support you, and feed you and nurture you, but I'm not going to manage you. I'm going to lead you. Now, all of a sudden, if Callie doesn't do any progress on that objective, what she can't come back and say is, well, John, you gave me the objective. I never agreed with it. I never bought in. And by the way, your employees are never going to say that to you. You have to employ somebody like me to get them to tell you that. Right? What they're going to do is they're going to sit and they're going to listen to you and they're going to smile at you. They're going to apologize and they're going to be disengaged. And they may go find a leader that won't do that to them. Right? So you say, hey, I need you to sell 10 houses this quarter. Right? Cool. That's not an objective. An objective is that I need you to come up with something of your own. And so then Callie comes back and says, you know what? I sold 8 houses last quarter. I got 12 in me this quarter. How you gonna, okay, what's your key results? Well, I'm gonna sell 12 houses. I'm not gonna sell one under the market comp. And I'm gonna close them, or they're all gonna be sold, closed within 65 days. Whoa, how happy are you? Now you've got something to measure. And Callie comes back and says, Sheena, I sold 11, but everything else I did really, really well. I gained over market comp by 7%. I closed on an average in 53 days. Nothing went longer than 65. My customers are elated, but man, I only got 11. Sheena, you pretty happy? Yeah, right? You just got 3 more houses than you had last quarter. And most important, Callie is now bought in. The heart and the mind of Callie is now engaged. 4 simple questions I'm going to give you, and I'll send this to you, Sheena and John. So I'll send you this and the Prezi, and you can do with it whatever you want. But that way y'all don't have to sit and scribble everything and try to remember all this craziness that comes out. But 4 questions I want you to ask yourself about your team member every 90 days. Every 90 days, every member of your team, ask yourself this question. If it were my money, I want this person to get the highest possible bonus. The bonus is discretionary, right? Bonus is extra free money. And y'all may not work in the world of bonuses. Maybe it's commissions. I don't know. But do you want them to get the most money that you're willing to hand out? The second question is, I always want this person on my project or on my team. The third question is, this person's at risk for low performance. And the fourth question is, this person's ready for more responsibility. If you'll ask yourself these 4 questions, this came from Deloitte, by the way. The disclaimer I didn't give is I just steal everything and put it into a package and add a little bit of stories from my failure to it along the way. But these are Deloitte's 4 questions they've come up with to really get rid of the dreaded employee performance review. Nobody likes them. Everybody hates them. I think I'm going to go cry. And by the way, employee reviews were nothing but HR's grand trick to convince everybody that they had to do something. That way they could have documentation in case you fired somebody and they sued you. And then guess what? If you get sued because you fired somebody, it's going to cost you money. No matter what documentation you have, might cost you a little bit more. Keeping a bad person will cost you a whole lot more money. I recruited a senior project manager to us about a year ago. Been there, done that guy, best of the best. He resigned. His last day was 2 weeks ago. And he resigned and he said all the right things. I got another opportunity. I'm back in my home market. I'm going to go back. And, I really appreciate the opportunity, more money, blah, 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 blah. So I chat with him. I said, why are you really leaving? He said, I told you. I said, nah, come on. That's not burning a bridge. Tell me why you're really leaving. He said, man, this team I work on stinks. He said, they are not very good. And the leader of that team that he's working with, like the field leader, we know is a problem, but we can't get the manager to move on it. He's sitting on a problem and he just cost himself another very high performer. Low performers will drive high performers out of your business. They won't come. And if they do come, they won't stay. And so ask yourself these 4 questions about all your employees every 90 days. One of the questions I ask myself as well that I add to this, number 5, is would I hire this person again? And if I ever say no, then I owe that person a conversation or I don't have integrity. Because wouldn't you want to know? Right? So like you're sitting there and you're like, hey, you know, does my boss like me? Does my boss not like me? Like, I want to know. And so when I do 90-day check-ins with my team members, so every 90 days we sit down, we have a very informal conversation, not written down, and we just talk about performance. My performance, their performance, our team's performance. We just talk about performance. But every 90 days I end with this. I end with, if I were hiring for this position again, I would hire you. And I ask them, if you were applying for a position, would you apply for this position? And every 90 days, that gives them the reassurance and the comfort that they need to know. And it makes sure that they're being introspective and looking at their satisfaction. You talk about performance reviews. I use something that looks a lot like this. It's one page and it goes out once a year, and the employee fills out 75% of it. And I'll send this out, but essentially the way it works is I hand it to my team blank. And by the way, people go, oh, I can't get people to do it. I got 300 construction employees that do it. So people will do it. And they write down their top 5 expectations, what they thought their expectations or performance measures were. And did they meet it or they miss it? You ever seen a self-assessment where you can also rate yourself exceed? That doesn't make any sense to me, because why set yourself up for that kind of a conversation? Most people are not going to tell you that they exceeded your expectations because they don't know anyway, right? And they don't want to seem that bravado, if you will. Where I usually see people rate themselves as exceeds are the people that are missing expectations because they have zero self-awareness. And so they fill out this, and then they fill out the opportunity section, the self-reflection. So what could I have done better? And then they fill out next year looks like in your own words. Then they turn it in, and then we fill it out, right? So then I rate them, met or miss, and then I can rate exceed if I want to. And then I have to notify or note down their top 1 to 3 accomplishments. What did I just really stood out to me in the year? One page, people over paper. Stop making the paper more important than the people. Because we don't know. Remember, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And paper doesn't send that sign. Okay, sorry. A couple of other tools, and these things are things where if you want to dive deep into any of these, John and Sheena know how to get in touch with me. They're more than welcome to hand out my email address. I love doing what I do. So, but there's things like skills inventory assessment. If you haven't wrote down all the knowledge, skill, and ability that every position needs, then you need to do that. And then you need to compare every person to that. Have them compare themselves first, and then you compare it with them and find out what their towering strengths are and what areas they need to grow in and give them the development that they need. General Electric did a thing called a 9 block, right? And a 9 block is your potential and your performance. So potential is on the y-axis and performance is on the x-axis. And it has things like talent risk all the way to promotable. And about every 6 months, we sit down and we plot everybody in a 9 block and we let them know right where they are. Then you can't hide, right? Leaders can't hide and employees can't hide. And who in here loves having a hard conversation with a poor performer? Anybody? Bueller? Nobody, right? They stink. And then so what do? Naturally, we put them off because we feel bad and we don't want to do it. We avoid it and avoid it and avoid it and avoid it. And then by the time we actually get to it, it's painful because we built it up in our heads. Well, guess what? All that time we just spent has an opportunity cost. And the opportunity cost is on developing your middle performers and rewarding your high performers. Here's a number that should scare you. Leaders spend 80% of their time on the bottom 20% of their people. Leaders spend 80% of their time on the bottom 20% of their people. Okay. And so you want to think about that, right? There's individual development plans you can bring in where somebody says, I want to get here, right? Great. Let's work on that. And then succession planning. Succession planning is just like I told you earlier, that her name was Miss Monica. Miss Monica, the operations person for my realtor, passed away unexpectedly. Margaret didn't have succession planning. She didn't have somebody ready. And so who's ready? Who's growing and ready? Who's ready now? Who's ready in the middle term? Who's ready in the short term or in the long term? And so these are all just things that you can take in, tools you can go Google. They're readily available. but some things that we use every day. Sheena asked a question, but great leaders spend how much time on the bottom 20%? I think it ebbs and flows with the team, because great leaders can have a team that they've had for a while that they really cultivate. They don't even really have a bottom 20 anymore. That's where I think Jack Welch got it wrong, was that there's always a bottom 20. I don't agree. Or they could inherit a team that's brand new that they have a lot of bottom 20. I can tell you, when I come into a new team, I give myself 100 days, and I don't listen to anybody. I don't know about if anybody here mothers or fathers of daughters, and I hope I don't cross any lines saying this, but I raise my daughters on one very clear principle when it comes to the opposite sex or to partners, whichever way that ends up breaking. And that is, pay attention to nothing that they say and everything that they do. Right? And I do the same thing with new teams. I give myself 100 days. I listen to nobody and I just watch everything they do. And then we sit down and we have a conversation. And then I give myself about 60 more days. So I'm at 180 days. I'm at about 6 months. And then if we have bottom 20 performers, people that don't need to be there anymore, they need to move up or move out, then we sit down and we have a very bold conversation that says, here's where you're meeting expectations. Here's where you're missing expectations. Here's my expectation of you going forward. And you have somewhere between 30 and 60 days to get these areas up to a meets expectations level, or we're gonna have to find something else for you to do. And I time box it. And so, Sheena, to answer your question, in that cycle, I'll spend a lot of time on the bottom 20 because I want to give everybody that chance and I want to give them the best version of me to try to help them. But I will not spend more than about 90 to 120 days on it, or I'm just taking away too much from the rest of the team.
That's valuable. I think that, like you said, I think everyone, especially in the beginning of their leadership journey, have trouble sort of running into those difficult conversations. And in my limited journey of being a team leader for the last 6 years, I think one thing I will say, speaking of this, is those conversations, we're putting those off. They can't happen soon enough. And they get easier over time. They really do. It's kind of exciting because once you know everything you said, I did your homework. Once you know what you stand for, 100% responsibility. Once you know what you stand for and what you will accept, it actually becomes really simple, and they may know that it's coming. And if they don't, they probably weren't a fit anyway.
Absolutely. I think it's great. And in my last, I tend sometimes to focus too much on getting bad people out, or get them up or get them out. And that's just because I think they're culture killers. Yes. And I think they drive away great talent. Like I remember one time I interviewed with a company, and it's a larger company here in Middle Tennessee. And they came after me and I agreed to go interview. And I told the bosses at Stanzel I was going to do it. I told them, I said, listen, there's a 99.99999% chance I stay. But I've been here 5 years and I need to go listen. And the very first interview panel they had me with was 4 people, and 3 of them did not need to be in the roles they were in. You could just tell. The rest of the interview for me was about gleaning as much information out of that construction company as I possibly could. I wanted to learn all their best practices. Right? I wasn't going to go. Because if the first 4 people you introduced me to, 3 of them shouldn't be in the role they're in, like, I don't want to come join that team. I want to come join a team that's immensely better than I am, that's going to push me every day to be better. Okay, so how do you apply this? I don't like doing lesson or education stuff without an application, and we don't have time to do it today, but so I just want you to think about this for a minute. And so what I want you to do is write down 2 names. If you have 2, maybe you don't. I want you to write down 2 people on your team. The first one is somebody who is actively engaged, high performer, all in, discretionary effort, does everything that you want them to do. Not perfect. Let's be really clear. Actively engaged is not perfection, right? And then I want you to think about someone on your team who's actively disengaged, or disengaged if you don't have an actively disengaged. Actively disengaged is no discretionary effort, very minimal effort to get by. You might refer to them as, well, they're a C player, but they're a warm body. They get something done. Maybe they're even working against you. They're really not meeting your expectations.
If you guys weren't here yesterday, when John says discretionary, he means basically goes beyond the expectation of the job. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
I told you I forget half the stuff I say. So I had somebody one time, they came to a talk, and it's the same talk, and they came in 2 different years. And they said, you said this completely different than the first time. And I said, you paid way too much attention. You're not supposed to do that. And what really boiled down to was I changed my mind. Okay, you got 2 names? Maybe, hopefully just 1, but maybe you got 2. Now I want you to commit to yourself right now, 100% responsibility. Commit to yourself right now that you're going to spend 5 minutes thinking about each person and some strategies that you can use to either move the needle with them or maintain their active engagement. So what does that look like? If you've got a low performer, or an actively disengaged person, I'm asking you to commit to spend 5 minutes thinking about the way you're going to go talk to them about what your expectations are and where they are. And if you have a high performer, actively engaged, they're doing great, then I want you to spend 5 minutes thinking about that person and how you're going to go tell them that. And how you're going to go show them some love and some appreciation. Can you commit to 10 minutes for me at some point over the next week? All right, cool. I saw enough head nods. All right, so we've talked a lot about what I call the leader's window. This is, I'm looking at a window and I see an environment, and it's so easy for most people, and I don't know if it's just Americans, but I sense it more in America than I have at least in Asia when I worked over there some. But we're really, really good at looking out at the window and telling the world what's wrong. You agree? If you don't believe me, I think it was in 1982 or 1983, something like that. Harvard did a study on if you have a great experience at a restaurant, how many people do you tell? And if you have a bad experience, if you had a great experience, you might tell 1. It was like 0.75 or something. And if you have a horrible experience, how many people did you tell? 10. They redid that study about 8 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that, maybe 5 years ago, somewhere in there. I don't remember. If you have a good experience, you now tell about 180. If you have a bad experience, you tell 2,200. Welcome to the internet. I got a message the other day from Yelp, a Yelp person, like an employee of Yelp, that said, we're sorry you're having such bad experiences. Can we recommend some restaurants to you around the area that are better? I was like, man, I'm being negative, right? And I just had a string of 3 or 4 bad experiences. But man, you know, I had a great experience yesterday and I forgot to jump on Yelp and give a shout out. We do that with our employees. It's really easy to look out that window and tell everybody what we see. The hardest person to lead is right in the mirror. It is hard to look in the mirror and say what we're doing well and what we're doing wrong. And I bet you that you struggle more with giving yourself credit than you do with giving yourself blame. If I bet $1 on that for everybody on this call, I'm going to come out positive. But it's also hard to look at yourself on what you need to do better as well. But even to give yourself kudos is hard. But I said yesterday, and I'll say it again, if you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. You can boss them, but you can't lead them. The first thing you have to be able to do is lead yourself. And I learned this the hard way. I was like maniacal almost, and I was full of myself and all of these things. And I remember in 2012, a book was handed to me by an executive coach, and it had underlined in it. Dick Wells is the one that says that. If you can't lead yourself, you can't lead others. And it was underlined and highlighted and starred and all of these things. And it had a bookmark in it. And this coach handed me that book and he said, not now, I'm going to leave. I want you to read what I've highlighted. And if you agree, call me and I'll coach you. If you disagree, don't call me. I'm not interested.
That's a great story.
And so I read it and I was like, what a jerk. I'm not going to let Ashurian spend $10,000 a month on this guy. I'm an HR guy. I don't even need a coach. And then the next 48 hours, right? A lot of introspective and a lot of look. I'm like, man, I don't lead myself very well. Yeah, he's right. So I called him and I said, hey, his name's Jay. I said, Jay Connor, you're right. I agree. He goes, cool, let's get to work. I'll be back in a month with some feedback. And he went and he circulated feedback. And so he came back and he held up a mirror for me. If you don't have someone holding up a mirror for you, you're in trouble. Go find the person that'll hold that mirror up for you and then listen. Make it completely safe. They have to have felt safety. They have to feel safe to tell you whatever it is they need to tell you. They won't always be right. But you have to create an environment where they'll hold up that mirror for you and you listen. You don't argue, you just listen. because they care and they're willing to do it. That can be a team member, it can be a spouse, it can be a child, it can be a mentor, it can be a coach, it can be a customer, it can be whoever you want it to be, but find somebody that's willing to hold that mirror up for you. I want to show you this quick video here. Anybody ever heard of Charlie Plumb? All right, so I'll set the stage just a second. So Charlie Plumb was a fighter jet pilot in Vietnam. Okay, and so fighter jet pilots are like jockeys, right? They're the big tough guys, right? They're oftentimes little, but a lot of bravado, a lot of things. And he was shot down over Vietnam and was put into a prisoner of war camp. And you can Google him and watch. He's got a much longer video that talks about prison thinking, and it talks about how you see yourself, etc. But this is a short blip that talks about packing parachutes here. Oh, hold on. I got to click a different button first. There we go.
I sat down in a restaurant.
Okay. You can probably hear it, but not see it. Am I right? All right. Let me share the right thing. All right. Can you see it now? Somebody give me a nod. Yep. Thank you very much. All right. How do I get that thing to go away there? Oh, I got too many windows open. There we go. Okay. Here we go.
I sat down in a restaurant in Kansas City where I used to live. About 2 tables over, a guy kept looking at me. I didn't recognize this gent. He stood up. The guy walked over to my table. He pointed at me and he said, "You're Captain Plumb." I looked up and I said, "Yes, sir. I'm Captain Plumb." "You're that guy. You flew jet fighters in Vietnam. You're a fighter pilot. Part of that Top Gun outfit, shot down off the aircraft carrier Kitty Hawk. You parachuted into enemy hands. You spent 6 years as a prisoner of war." Somewhat dumbfounded, I looked up at this guy and I said, "How in the world did you know all that?" He finally broke into a smile and he said, "Because I packed your parachute." Tell you this guy that runs around the country making speeches, suddenly I was speechless. Best I could do was stagger to my feet, reach out a very grateful hand of thanks. He came up with just the proper words. The guy grabbed my hand, he pumped my arm, and he said, "I guess it worked." And indeed it did, my friend. And I must tell you, I've said a lot of prayers of thanks for your nimble fingers, but I had no idea I'd ever had the opportunity of expressing my gratitude in person. He said, "Were all the panels there?" I said, "No, I must be honest with you, they weren't." I'll never forget the opening shock of that parachute and counting the panels, and 3 were torn of the 18. Had 15 good panels, but it wasn't your fault, it was mine. I ejected from that F-4 Phantom at 600 knots close to the ground. I was well outside the envelope of that parachute. You did your job, I didn't do mine. I said, "But let me ask you a question. Do you keep track of all the parachutes you pack? Do you know of all the lives you've saved?" The guy said, "No." Now, this is the most important part of the conversation that night, and it may be the most important thing I say to you this morning, and I think it deals directly with your core values of service excellence, of integrity, of team, of continuous improvement, of accountability, fulfillment, of fun, and one we added last night, GSD, get stuff done. I think what he said to me deals directly with being the best health provider in the world. Here's what he said. He said, "No, I don't keep track of all the parachutes I pack. It's enough gratification for me just to know that I've served." Here's a sailor well below the waterline of this aircraft carrier. His job is to stand at a long wooden table. He weaves the shrouds and he folds the silk panels of these parachutes, and he passes them along one after another, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, while the jet jockey, while the reason they built that aircraft carrier, the guy flying the airplane, the Top Gun, zooms around the sky at the speed of sound, and I couldn't have cared less about the guy down there in the hole. Until one day my parachute came along, and he packed mine up for me. Hey gang, isn't that what this business is all about? packing parachutes for our patients, for each other, for our families. So the question becomes, how's your parachute packing coming along? Who is it that looks to you for strength in time of need? Maybe more importantly, how's your parachute packed? Who do you look to when the going is tough?
So who's packing your parachute? That wasn't supposed to happen. That was like, so that would have been awesome if I'd have played that off, right? Like the music was perfect.
That was so needed too, because that's like a really heavy moment, right? That story's crazy, and then here we are with the quick comic relief. But like, wow, man, that is powerful. Who's packing your parachute?
Yeah, who's packing yours? As a leader, who's packing your parachute? And you're packing other people's. I remember coming home one day and my daughter, who's now 15, she was, I think, 5 or 6. And she said, Daddy, look at this picture I colored. And I was like, hey, Kaylin, you did a great job. And I just kept moving, right? I just came from work and I'm tired and I'm hungry and I'm all of these things. And there's 3 little rugrats. And I turn around and I look at her and she goes, but what did I do good? So we had to talk about coloring in the lines, and all these things, right? And so packing parachutes is a leader's responsibility, but you also have to make sure somebody's packing yours, because the top is lonely, okay? Even world-class teams require leadership, back to our McKinsey. So what does that look like as a leader? Again, you're looking internal to yourself, right? Do not get in the way. We often think, well, we're the best, and so we got to get in the way. Like, we got to have our fingerprints on everything. Be good at your job. Be a leader and a manager. What does that mean? You have to be able to engage hearts and minds. You have to be able to lead people effectively, but you also have to manage a business. Lead the people, manage the business. Don't manage the business. Don't manage the people and the business, right? Let the people do their job. Set an example. I talked yesterday about role model the behavior you want from others. You have to role model that behavior like you're on stage. Balance capabilities and egos. Once you get a bunch of 10s, guess what you're going to have? A lot of capability and a lot of ego. And you have to figure out how to balance those things. You have to provide vision, right? Remember, the right people on a mission working together. You have to build and nurture leaders, and you have to make sure you're managing interpersonal relationships. A team that's not fed is a team that will go find something to eat on, and you want them to eat on your culture, and you want them to eat on what you're giving them. If not, they'll go find things. Take a group of high performers, put them in a room together, and ignore them, and they will implode. It's almost guaranteed. A very quick story. We were at Asurian, and we were trying to figure out how to automate our infrastructure, our IT infrastructure. And for the life of us, we couldn't figure out. About 200 infrastructure employees. Everybody had an opinion. Everybody wanted to do it their way. And if you don't know any IT people, all other IT people stink except the one you're talking to. Right? And so what we did was we took 4 of the smartest technologists we could find, and we put them in a room. And the only person in our company that was allowed to talk to them was me. No one could get in their way, and they had no budget. And they were just told, go code, go automate. And I would go by about once every 2 or 3 days and ask them if they needed anything. And about a month and a half in, 3 of the 4 were ready to quit. So you took genius computer scientists, the biggest introverts you could ever imagine. They still needed to be fed. They still needed nurturing. They still needed a team. And so we created a team within a team, and we made them their own little team. And in 18 months, they spent about $5.5 million, and they did about $100 million worth of work. Right? I mentioned Mr. Wells a few times. And if I don't give him enough credit, then shame on me. But make no mistake about it, if you cannot lead yourself, you can't effectively lead others. You might be able to boss them, but you won't be able to lead them. No comment has ever been made to me in the term of leadership that stuck as much as this one did. If you think about a couple of things of leaders that you may pick out, and you think about how they lead themselves, there's 2 people that come to my mind that both made the same decision, and it's such a small thing that you don't think about. Steve Jobs and Barack Obama shared at least one characteristic, a trait that I know of. They generally wore the same outfit. Not that they matched each other. I never saw Barack or Mr. Obama, President Obama in a turtleneck and blue jeans, right? But if you go back and look, he didn't have wild outfits. He wasn't changing much. I think he changed ties. And Jobs obviously never changed. And if you go back and you research and you find out why, and what their answer is look, I make a lot of decisions every day and I only have so much time to make decisions. And this is a decision I'm not going to make. It's not worth it. They figured out how to lead themselves, right? Is the example that you get there. A couple more things, then we're going to open it up. So the rest of this book that Dick Wells wrote, around 16 Stones, he says that you have to find rest, which is defined as true relaxation. You ever go on vacation and then you answer your phone the whole time? I see some guilty smiles, right? Look, the graveyard is full of indispensable people. Okay, you are not indispensable. You have to go relax. Another funny side note is one time they brought in a director of fulfillment at Dell, who was a Naval Academy grad and a dual major from MIT. One of the smartest human beings I've ever met in my life. His parents were uber rich. They own a private island somewhere down in the Caribbean. So he's talking to 3,000 manufacturing employees in his welcoming speech. And he says, look, when you take vacation, you got to take vacation. Don't just take a week, take 2 weeks. Because it takes 3 or 4 days to finally relax and get rid of everything. And then you need a week to really relax and a couple of days to kind of get ready to get back. And he walks off the stage. He looks at me, he goes, how'd I do? I said, horrible. He said, what do you mean? I said, they start with 5 days of vacation every year. I said, they are not you. He was like, oh, bad. Yeah, real bad. They don't have an island. Right? But you have to go find relaxation, you and your team. You have to escape, not different, escape. We say, well, I'm going to go play golf outside the city. That's escaping. No, not really, because you take your phone, leave your phone in your car, right? You have to escape. And then lastly is, and this is a biblical reference, but your ox can't be in the pit all the time. So the reference here is in the Bible, it talks about not to work on the holy day or the Sabbath, right? And then it gives an example. Well, what if my ox is in a pit? Well, if your ox is in a pit, then you can get your ox out of a pit. That's not working. Okay, so whether the Bible, not the Bible, it doesn't matter to me. But the point being is that what a great story that as a leader, if we're always making an excuse to work every day, all the time, that's on us, right? That's not 100% responsibility. And if you have children, they're great equalizers. They'll tell you, Dad, put your phone up, right? And so you just got to listen to them. And then the last thing I'm going to tell you is, and then I got one more little tool and then we're going to open it up, is you see number 4 here, get help, right? The 3 hardest words in the English language are what? I am sorry. And then followed by I don't know. That's really 4, but I combine them. And I tell people all the time that get help if you need it. And that could be help in your job. It could also be help in your life. I lived a very hard 10 years of my life in dealing with some mental health stuff due to some trauma. And instead of getting help, I fought. And I thought I was strong enough and smart enough to solve it myself until one day I wasn't. And I finally went and I talked to somebody who was a professional. And over the next 18 months, they changed my life. And that's just part of who I am. It's just part of my story. And I embrace it. And I'm embarrassed about those 10 years, but it got me to where I am today. But I tell anybody I talk to go get help. Find that person to be a mirror. Find that person that can help you be better professionally. And if you need it, find that person that can help you be better emotionally. Leaders are not invincible as much as the world wants to convince us that we are. Okay. The last little tool, and we're going to open it up, is the Johari window. So it was created by 2 psychologists, Joe and Harry or something like that. So they came up with a very, cute name, Johari. And really what this does is there's 4 quadrants to the Johari window. So this open area, this is what I know about me and what you know about me. Sheena, give me something you know about me.
You have a big, amazing family.
Big, amazing family. I know it and you know it. I've shared that with you. Right? Then there is the hidden area. The hidden area is I know this about me and you don't know this about me. And that can be because I don't trust you enough to share. It can be because our relationship isn't to that point. It can be because it's just inappropriate for you to know that about me. Whatever it is, but this is, I know this about me, you don't know this about me. This bottom right is the unknown. This is, you don't know it and I don't know it. It's potential. It's potential to be good or potential to be bad, but it's potential. And then this top, so I want you to ignore these bottom two boxes. These are, one, you can't define the unknown, and the hidden area is the hidden area. It just takes care of itself, right? And we're all different. My guess is we were around this room right here. I just told you I had mental health struggle for 10 years. There's some people on this call that have had mental health struggles. They're not going to announce that on this Zoom call. That is okay. It doesn't make me better and you worse, or you better and me worse.
I'll announce it.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks, John. Shout out, right? John's a big extrovert.
We gotta destigmatize that, right? People need to, you need help, get help.
Completely agree. The hidden's hidden, right? Some people just aren't willing to share it. And that's okay. But I want you to focus on these top two. This is what I know and what you know. This area number 2 is the blind area. This is what you know about me that I don't know about me. Scared yet? So if you want to really find out as a leader, if you want some feedback, take a flip chart or a whiteboard and draw a line down the middle of it. And on the left, I want you to write down all the things about you that you know about you that you think your team knows about you. Leave the room and tell them to go in and read that list, and anything they know about you that you didn't write down, tell them to put on the other side.
By when?
Yeah, this is
add a date to it. I want to know when you guys are all doing this exercise.
Yeah, this is hard. And what I'd ask you to do is think about it. Are you ready for it? If you're not ready for it, go get some help and get ready for it. But do it, because here's what'll happen. This right side's going to tell you 2 things. One is it's going to say some things on there that you already know, but you just didn't think you had let your team know that. Like you think you're hiding it. I worked for a guy one time, like 9 people wrote down narcissist. And I was, and I'm the HR person. I got in there, I was like, oh, this is going to be bad. And so he and I walk in the room and I'm trying to prep him for what he's about to see. And I've got like my emotional hug ready, and the narcissist 9 times. And he looks up and he goes, yeah, I know I'm a narcissist. I just didn't figure anybody else figured it out. Right. And so, and then you're going to get a list of things that are just blind spots. They're just things for you to go work on.
You know what, John? I was listening to this. There's this podcast that's like Grow Talent, something like that. Talent Grow podcast. It's not a great podcast, but sometimes they have good guests on there. And they accidentally did something like this in a team environment. And what ended up happening, and I guess this is if you have the right people on your team. If you put something like this up and everybody has to go around and say a few positive things about the other people, and it really got this whole conversation going, all the love, all the crying, all of those positive things.
That's awesome. Yeah, so some of the blind areas, by the way, because humans just want to tell you you're doing a good job. And so some of the blind areas are going to be kudos. In fact, more are going to be kudos than they're going to be negative. So don't be too scared of it, but you're going to get some stuff that stings. I was 24 years old working at Dell Manufacturing, and a guy named Chris Simpson was the HR guy. And my boss was Jim Weiss, and there was a red LED counter over our production line. We had to produce 425 computers an hour. We worked 12-hour shifts, so I could do the math, and I knew what that was. And he said, your job every day is to beat that number. And I said, yes, sir. And that's what we did every day. We beat the number. No excuses. We just beat the number. And then one day, Chris Simpson walks out and he goes, hey, you need to come to my office. So I go see him. I'm like, what's up? And he goes, you scored the lowest score of any supervisor in the entire plant in the employee satisfaction score survey called Tell Dell. I said, okay, tell him to toughen up. We beat the number. And he said, no. If you score below a 50%, you get fired. I said, what was I? He said, a 25. I said, hold on, time out. I'm getting fired? And he said, yeah, you can't score below a 50. That's a hard and fast rule at Dell. And I said, well, nobody ever told me it mattered what they thought. They just told me to beat the number. And so he did this greatest thing with me. He did a start, stop, continue. He put my whole team, 25 people in a room with flip charts. He said, what do you want to see John start doing, stop doing, and continue doing? And he facilitated a conversation. He rolled the sheets up and he handed them to me. And he said, if you're willing to go work on these things, you can stay. If you're not, you need to go find something else to do. Reading those sheets at 24 years old, I was not happy. And I wanted to blame all of them. But in the end, they were right. I was a jerk. Right? So yesterday, I gave you some homework. Again, I started the talk, and I'm going to end the talk with simply this. If you don't have a compass, you will end up off course. And so yesterday, your homework was to think about you as a leader. What is your purpose? Why do you exist? What are your values? What doesn't change? What is non-negotiable? You ever play the game of, would you do this for $1 million? Or would you do that for $10 million? Your core values should always dictate your answer, right? What is your self-vision? Your self-vision is where you're going. And then how are you going to get there? What are 1 to 5 things you're going to go to do to work on doing that, right? And so yesterday I shared my purpose is to try to pour back into other people. I think of life as, remember when Oreos used to come in sleeves of cookies? Remember those, or Chips Ahoy used to come in sleeves? And if I had just opened my sleeve of Chips Ahoy and John came up and he said, hey, you know, John and Nicole Rodriguez, they come up and they go, hey, can I get a cookie? If I'm at the top of my sleeve and I got 20 to go, I'm probably going to give you a cookie, right? If I got 2 or 3 left, I don't know. I look at life as a sleeve of cookies. The difference is I just don't know how many more cookies I got left. I have no idea where I'm at in my stack. And so my purpose is just to try to pour back into others for so many people have poured into me over the years, right? And my values speak about integrity, and they speak about faith, and they speak about being a servant. My vision is to continue to work on my empathy and to lose some weight. I'm a little overweight. I'm a lot of overweight, but we won't talk about that right now. And what I didn't touch on yesterday is how am I going to get there? So one of the things I do is, like, I signed up, I mentioned it yesterday, I read this book, Applied Empathy. I signed up to do this for Belmont University and lead a book study on this. So I'm going to get myself out of my comfort zone and levels of empathy and try to work on it. To lose weight is I got to set a better example for my kids. And so I'm going to draw a line in the sand. It's November 1 and here we go. And we're just going to try to start eating a little better and start moving a little more. Right. And then there's some other things to go along with that. So what I'd like to do in closing is let's spend about 5-10 minutes maybe. Is anybody willing to share their purpose? Why are you here? Yeah, Sheena.
Yeah, I think we talk about this on our team a lot. It is to do as much good as possible every single day for every single person we meet. And I talk about that a lot when I think you maybe were at one of the speaking engagements I was at where Christy actually mentioned what I say when I talk about my prospecting class is that we don't look for buyers and sellers every day. We literally just look for people we can do good with, and something, I think it's just good karma. We may not get a deal out of it, but it doesn't really matter because we know we left the world a better place. If we don't make it tomorrow, we'll know that we had a good day the day before.
I've heard you say that, so I remember that from Nashville. Right? Anybody else want to share? What's your purpose? Why are you here? When there's that much of a pause, the question is it because you don't want to talk or because you don't know? Or you hear me
tell you why I'm in the business.
Yeah, shoot, go.
My whole purpose is to bring glory to God and to show others Jesus Christ's love. So as Sheena was saying, it's not about selling a house. And I get grief for it all the time because people are always like, what's your numbers? What's your numbers? What's your numbers? And it's like, that's not my role. That's not why I'm here on earth. But I don't push it on people. People don't even probably know unless it comes up in a conversation. But for me, it's to bring glory to God.
Awesome. And this group's big enough. Some people probably agree with you and some people probably disagree with you. And that is
exactly.
Okay. That is your purpose. It has to be yours.
But that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I work with all sorts of customers. And I've even had people call me and go, we heard you're the queen of gay and lesbian realtors. And I'm like, great, come on. let's go shopping, you know, and they're not trying to push their agenda on me and I'm not pushing mine on them. And that's what the best part is.
Right. But you know your purpose, right?
Exactly.
I bet that comes with a pretty sweet crown. Mine, I just wrote mine. I was thinking about it in terms of like, I'm trying to get really simple. And so I just wrote out is to help people.
Love
It's like, if I'm going to define it to my kid, like I want to be able to explain it to my 5-year-old son. And so if I'm going to be able to explain it to him, like it's just simple. It's not like, it's not clients. It's not realtors. It's just to help people.
There's
Somebody-
an,
oh,
oh, nope, you're all right. I was just
No,
gonna say
go.
there's an Elsie DeWolf quote that I have held on to for years now that says, I'm going to make everything around me beautiful and that will be my life. And I get teary when I think about it, because that can be how you handle people, that can be systems, that can be how I am as a mom or a wife or a coworker. And so my whole purpose is to just make everything around me beautiful, no matter what it is that we're talking about.
Awesome. Is somebody willing to share a core value? What is a guardrail? What is something that you hold near that's non-negotiable?
Integrity, honesty.
What does that mean to you?
It means to give people the bad news and admit when you're wrong, even when it's hard, even when it hurts. And we try to keep a culture where that's rewarded, or that's, accepted, and that's expected, and mistakes are okay. This is not, like we like to say in real estate, this is not life and death. So whatever happened, we're going to get through it together.
Awesome.
Mine was optimism. So
Hey, what does that mean?
And I define that as like, I genuinely believe that most people are good. Most of them.
Find the good in people, right? Love that. Anybody else want to share one?
One of my core values is you can do hard things. I tell it to my kids, we have it plastered everywhere, like it's my Facebook timeline header, but you can do hard things. And that can be applied in so many ways. And I think we all need that reminder.
That is so cool. I love that.
I have one I like called where I like to say, find the purpose in the pain. Sometimes things are hard and difficult, and think of childbirth, and that's painful, but you get this incredible reward at the end. And so sometimes we are focused so much on the pain that we aren't looking for the purpose of it.
Wow. Yeah, the couple of guys on here are like, yeah, we have no idea. I mean, we get the common cold, which we hear is like childbirth, but that's at least what my wife tells me. So,
And the after effects.
Yeah. Does somebody have like a short-term, think 3 to 5 year vision that you're willing to share, not for your team, but for yourself? Like, what's something that you're trying to accomplish?
John and I want to raise $1 million for clean water.
Nice.
It's a personal goal, a team goal, an everything goal, which makes it easy. Yeah. Got his team GG hat.
Yeah, come to Digital Mission Ball and be on my team for fundraising. We have one to go. No, if Sheena won't remember your name, be on my team. I'll remember your name and I'll send you presents.
I'm in. Sign me up. Right. I'll tell you one more story, and then we'll just open it up for any Q&A you have. When we adopted our second son, Christopher, we took everybody with us to China. And so if you can imagine taking, 3 Caucasian Middle Tennessee young ladies with you to China, their world was shocked, and Central Eastern China's world was equally shocked. And the town that we ended up in Luoyang has about 6.5 million people and about 40 foreigners. 40. And most of those foreigners are not Caucasian. And so anywhere we went, we stood out like a big, gigantic sore thumb, right? And we ended up at this thing called Maria's Big House of Hope, which was founded by Show Hope here in Middle Tennessee. And it's a medical care center for sick kiddos, for sick orphans. And we thought it'd be a really good chance for our girls to get to experience and hold babies and really kind of get their eyes open to this other side of life. And we go in and we met Leah, who I showed you her picture earlier. And if you couldn't tell from looking at the picture, if you weren't here yesterday, Leah was very sick. She had 4 major heart defects. Her oxygen saturation was around 60%. She had a couple of syndromes. She was profoundly deaf. She was in failure to thrive. The list can go on. And Riley, who at the time was 7, I believe, 7 or 8, fell in love with Leah immediately. And Riley pushed and pushed and pushed. The rest of it, we have to adopt Leah. We have to adopt Leah. She had a different name at the time, obviously, but we have to adopt her. We have to adopt her. I'm like, hold on, time out. We just adopted 2 kids. We're broke. We just took 5 people to China, like 5 kids to China. We're out, right? And the last night in China, Riley looks at me. She says, "Can we adopt her?" And I said, "No, Riley." I said, "She doesn't have a chance." And Riley looks at me and she said, "You better try," and walked off. And so we tried, and we had the path paved, and we got to adopt her. And she came home and she lived with us for about 4.5 months. She survived open heart surgery, 23 days in intensive care, et cetera, et cetera. She got to come home. And then in January of 2016, we woke up, a big snowstorm in Middle Tennessee. It was about 10 inches. So I know for some of y'all that's comical, but 10 inches shuts down Middle Tennessee. And she was in cardiac arrest, and we couldn't get to the children's hospital. She passed away. And I remember asking, our minister showed up. I remember asking him, I said, "How do I tell my children this? How do I tell the other children?" He said, "You go home and you tell them the truth. You don't tell them anything else." He said, "But the one thing I want to tell you is I want you to be ready for their reaction. Some of them will be very sad. Some of them may just blow it off. Some of them may want to go eat." He said, "And that's okay. Everybody handles it differently." And I said, "Okay, I got it." And so I came home and we sat all the kids down and we told them, Leah died. And about 10 minutes into that, and they're all sad and they're all crying, et cetera. And Riley looks up and she goes, "Hey, Dad." And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "She was worth it." The reason I share that story is because that is now my purpose. She was worth it, and you're worth it, and your team's worth it. And the people who may not look like they're worth it, they're worth it. But as leaders, if we don't understand who we are, we will never achieve our full potential. We will always come up one swipe short. Okay, and then after Leo, we went on to adopt 3 more. So crazy. But and I'm not trying to propagate just for adoption, but I want you to understand that, and I appreciate the comments and the praise and all of those things. I always tell people I'm an imperfect person, imperfect world, producing imperfect results. But I got way out of my comfort zone when I was in my mid-30s, and it was the best thing I ever did in my life, because I went on a journey to find me. Okay. All right. How about a Q&A? And then, I have a special guest. Do you want to meet Molly?
Yes.
Meet Molly. This is Molly. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Molly.
Hi.
Hi.
No, say it real loud.
Hi.
Hey, guess what these people did?
Hmm.
They donated money to help other little kids get blades. Is that cool? What do you say? No, they got to hear you real loud.
Thank you.
No, real loud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You are welcome. We actually have a total now. The goal was $2,000. We've raised $4,100.
Whoa, Molly! Yay!
So if anybody just reminder, now that you've seen Molly too. Oh my God. If you got anything from this and haven't yet bought a ticket, or even if you have Venmo me, Sheena-Sadam, and we will get the money over to John to donate to Amputee Blade Runners, a very worthy cause.
Wow.
I'm speechless. Thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, any questions? Anything you want to ask?
Yeah, who's got the tissues? Oh man. Yeah. What questions do you guys have for John before we let him go? Thank you so much. You, again, I won't give you any extra praise because you know you don't want it, but you're incredible. And that story was incredible, and everything you taught us was incredible. And wow, what a way to end 2 amazing, impactful days. Shoot, I don't know, Sheena, do we go for the three-peat? Do we,
Yes.
do we bring him to Austin, or do we want to hear this guy talk some more? I think so.
John's like, I'm tired of you guys.
He's like, I'm over you guys. We'll see. We'll talk to him. But if you guys
I
want
love
to finish,
from Austin now, so
yeah, there we go. I know he'll fit right in by the pool at the winery. But yeah,
I
if
do
you
have
guys-
kind of a question because people were struggling with it, and I do feel like it's a really difficult question to answer. I mean, I feel like lucky to have come upon my purpose. I feel like it was thrown in my lap, but I mean, you went on this journey to find yourself and ultimately found your purpose. Where should people even begin? People were pretty silent on that, and maybe they didn't feel comfortable sharing, but maybe it's like, I don't know, that's such a big question. Or is it just like, let me just sit down for a little bit and meditate on this, and or just see where my heart is pulled? Like, how do you even begin to answer that question?
yeah. Well, that's hard to answer because I think it's different for everyone. But I'll tell you what I did, and you can do with that what you will. I went and spent time by myself in the woods with no distractions. And I just went prepared with a series of questions. What's important to me? What's not important? Who are people I look up to and why? I think it's an age-old question, but what do I want people to say about me when I'm gone? What is it? I think that I occupy this really, really tiny space of this big, vast universe, and in my space, I love the comment of I'm going to make everything around me beautiful, and that will be my life. What is it that why are you here? And some people can do it in an hour, and some people it'll take a year or two to figure out, or 5 years. I don't time box it to yourself. Maybe your first goal is to set the goal to define it. Unfortunately, I remember someone else. We're gonna do the hard or something like that. We're gonna do hard things.
we do hard things. So.
Yeah. So I think so much of defining who we are comes out of trauma. And I have my own trauma stories that I won't share. I've done enough emotional for the day, but mine came more about who I didn't want to be at first, and then I kind of morphed that into who I wanted to be. And that would be my biggest encouragement to you is don't play scared. Don't ever play scared. Like be bold and brave, and really define what that is. But I think if you just ask yourself a series of questions, you'll get there. And I would go ask people for feedback. Hey, what do I do well? What do I not do so well? And I think that'll end up teaching you a lot about yourself.
Oh, Sheena, you're muted.
Thank you. That was super helpful.
Let's hear, either give me an aha, or more importantly, tell me like one action item you're going to take out of this 2-day event that you're going to implement, and really try and narrow it down to one, because if you can't ride 2 bicycles, right? So what's the one action item that you're going to change or implement or put forward in your business that you got out of one of our panels, or that you got out of John White? Share that'll help us all. Yeah, John.
I love that idea about the flip chart with putting what what your team knows about you on one side. And then John, can you just go back over that? And then what are they putting on the other side? Because I definitely want to do that. We're having our team like planning meeting for next year on Friday, and I would love to do that at our meeting.
Absolutely. So on the left-hand side, to make it just really simple, the left-hand side this is called open. I know this about me, and you know this about me. And I as a leader populate that. The right side is you know this about me, and I don't know this about me, and they populate that.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. That was good. I missed that second part. I was like, wait, what did he say? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. What else are you guys going to implement?
The 4 questions for the team to ask, about who would you want to get the highest possible bonus, and who do you always want to be part of your project. I thought that was a good exercise and very eye-opening. And then also, I'm going to try to kick that heroin addiction of distraction.
Yeah, me too. I just, my son now gets to a point where he'll say, don't answer it when my phone rings. He'll be like, don't answer it. And God, I would never tell him to stop saying that. Like, what great advice, right? Don't answer it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to take with me, my thing is going to be so many things, but I'm going to do the she was worth it. Like, for me, that's like don't, just because, like, live in a world of possibility, live in a world of like, do it anyway. Like, doesn't matter. It's about the journey, not the outcome. So she was worth it. Anyone else want to share? One aha, one takeaway, one Lindsay Dodge, smart Lindsay Dodge. Let's hear.
For me, it's all about, I'm so easily distracted and I struggle with not being where I am all the time. So that the Nora's presentation was so fitting for me and my life and my family, and just saying, hey, spouse, daughter, I give you permission if I'm distracted or not paying attention or on my phone, like, call me out on it. And because I need to be where I am. And yeah, just was powerful to me.
Will you let me know once you give them that permission?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Text me and shoot me a message while I'm here. I want to know that you did that, because that's super important. Who else? Emily, Sharon, Angela, Dawn, anybody else want to share one?
I think for me, the questions, the every 90-day evaluation questions were really good. And definitely using some of those, I think it puts it into context a lot better with those questions.
Awesome.
I really appreciated the high-level discussion, John, this afternoon on leading well. It was a good challenge, but the thing I'm going to take away most was the analogy about the parachute. I pack a lot of parachutes and I can make those look super pretty for everyone else, but I need to start thinking about who's packing mine a little more intentionally these days. So I appreciated the challenge on that. Thank you.
Awesome. Parachute packing was crazy. That guy's my new favorite speaker. That was amazing. Angela?
I was going to say all the other stuff that we heard in the breakout groups with the calendar, and that was all big. I think Riley is my takeaway. You better try. And this year has just been crazy with things going on in the world, at home, with health. And it's changed my perspective in life. And these kids, we have to listen to what they're saying is so powerful, because just like yours, John, I can't tell you how many times I'm like telling my son, in a minute, I'm busy. Let me finish this email. Let me get off this call. Let me finish this. And they're standing right in our ears, talking and needing and wanting and begging. And we're not even hearing it. And that was just powerful. Thank you.
All right. Well, if you appreciated it, if you're watching this and you're watching the replay, it's not too late. You can still donate. Please send Sheena a Venmo. Venmo is Sheena-Sadum, and it's all over the group. So thank you again for everybody who came. Thank you for everybody who stayed to the end. And we would love to see you in Austin. You are all on the VIP list. If you want to come with us We consider you all to be family, and we would love to see you in Austin next October 11th through 13th if you want more of this. Sheena?
Yeah, I'll bring the whiskey, bring the screwball.
Thank you guys again. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, John. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you all so much.
Bye.